Why did San Jose trade for Nemesnikov? That makes no sense.
At first, I thought Dylan Larkin got traded. When I saw that he has a new extension, I was like, who the fuck did he sign an extension with? But nope, it was just an extension with Detroit.
Staying in Detroit. Good God, man. It's bonkers.
This is absolutely insane.
Teddy Bluger was a guy I would have liked the Bruins to get, but not for a third. If he was cheaper than a third. But I'm fine with Vegas taking that up on their end. So, all right. All right, so Twitter here. Have it ready to go.
No typos.
The tweet went through before I go live, right?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Or
I just
record, rather.
I just tweeted it out. Yep.
Sweet.
Trades galore.
Trades galore. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 132 of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. Here for you on March 1st on another Wednesday night, 7:18 p.m. A big hockey episode this week with a little bit of football, a little bit of baseball. But before we get into everything and all the craziness, Ryan, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling great. I said I'm a little upset though that Jackie Bradley Jr. went to the Royals, and we're not going to talk about that at all. Like, you just think you can just drop an all hockey and an all Patriots episode on me when JBJ, the defensive wizard, goes to the Kansas City Royals? Like, that should be taking up at least the first 10 to 15 minutes of the show. So a little upset there.
Jackie Bradley Jr. the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep. No, obviously not. We are in the mix leading up to the deadline. For anybody who's listened in the past, I will be able to record normal time unless Ryan's work schedule prevents it, and we do a Thursday episode next week. So we'll keep you posted on that. Because I had a work outing next week scheduled, but I should be able to get home in time for normal recording time next week. So just a heads up for any.
Oh wait, no, I changed my work availability because I miscommunication. Fuck. So that's gonna have to be a Thursday show.
Okay, Thursday show. Just kidding. Prank.
My bad. I did that last night. And I completely negated in texting you. So
no prank.
Oops, my bad. All right,
double prank. But like, we start with moments of the week. My moments of the week segues into hockey stuff. So we might as well just save that for the hockey segment of the show and get into Ryan's stuff about the MLB pitch clock, which is caused quite a stir, not in like a bad way, but more so in like a funny way to start spring training so far.
Yeah, it's in full swing, no pun intended, obviously, with it being baseball related. You've seen some funny things, as you said. Manny Machado, I think in his first at bat of the season, took an automatic strike because he took too long to get in the box. I thought his response was kind of funny. He went on to say, I might be down 0-1 a lot this year because obviously that's the new rule. If hitters can't get ready to go, they will have an automatic strike called against them. We saw a little bit more of a controversial example of that, as I'll get to a little later. On the pitching side of things, you had, I think it was yesterday, Cleveland Guardians pitcher. No surprise if you watch this guy pitch, James Karinchak. He's a maniac on the mound with all of his mannerisms and stuff that he does. He had an automatic ball call on him after asking for a new baseball in the middle of an at-bat, and the pitch clock did not reset. So I don't know if that was more so on the umpires at fault, or if that's going to be a rule too, that if you throw or you ask for a new ball, the thing doesn't reset. You saw a guy in the Red Sox game, one of their minor league pitchers. He was called for, I think it was either an automatic balk or it was an automatic balk because we talked about it before, the disengagement thing where you can only throw over to first base and step off the rubber so many times. So you're seeing a lot of that stuff take place, which is good for the most part. You want to get these things worked out pretty early in spring training. The pitch count or the pitch clock as a whole for the time of game, the pace of play, it's worked wonders so far. You've had multiple examples. SNY Mets, their Twitter account, had a great game breakdown of the Mets' first 3 games under the new clock, saying, quote, MLB's implementation of a pitch clock has already had serious impact on game length. The Mets' first 3 spring training games all come in well under 3 hours. Their average game length last season was 3 hours and 10 minutes. Steve Gelb's tweet that was referenced in this tweet said time of game for the Mets' first 3 spring training games, 2 hours and 33 minutes, 2:34 and 2:28. For a more local example, you had Nessen's Adam Pellerin with the Red Sox first 3 spring training games against the Braves was 239. The Rays was 239 as well. The Twins was 224, and last night's game clocked in exactly 2 hours and 20 minutes. So obviously it's working in that sense, but the more controversial thing that you alluded to is in the Red Sox and Braves, that matchup, the game ended because of a pitch clock violation. Braves hitter Cal Conley failed to get in the box with 8 seconds remaining on the clock. He was hit with a strike 3 call, an automatic one, with the bases loaded in the 3-2 count in the 9th inning. So that game, instead of the Braves potentially walking it off, ended in a tie, to the chagrin and the disapproval of a lot of people on Twitter. I saw one included, because this is, I think, where the pitch clock can get into a little bit of a problem here. If you have games being decided by, the automatic strike, or, say this happens in a late postseason push type of thing for a team, this is where it could get murky. So, you've had some good, you've had some bad. My question to you is, I mean, it's spring training games, so I don't know how many you've kind of sat down and watched, or if you've seen any of the pitch clock.
0.
No, not. Have you seen anything on Twitter, or just like, because I was going to ask your
Twitter,
overall thoughts
absolutely.
With the pitch clock. We've talked about it before. The pitch clock as a whole, you and I think we're both for it. But after seeing it, or just in your case, seeing clips of it on Twitter be implemented, what have your thoughts been so far, if you have any?
It's changing the game. That's my early impression.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like in spring training, I don't like, it really doesn't bother me if it's affecting the outcomes of games, late game in particular. But like, it's in its early stages, so I'm kind of like in wait and see mode still on it. But it's the data on it speeding things up is certainly promising. So I'll take it.
It is a little weird to watch, because I sat down and watched most of the Twins game before I had to go to work the other day, and seeing the pitchers sped up a little bit was a little jarring at first, because obviously you get the ball back and then they just seem to go. You've had some funny moments. There was a Red Sox minor leaguer that almost didn't make it into the box in time, so he kind of had to scurry to the plate. Carlos Correa did the same thing, I think, today in his game with the Twins game, so that was kind of funny. On it, like I said, kind of determining a game, Jeff Passan had a good tweet talking about the rule and giving, a specific insight to the whole thought process from the league and from umpires. He said it's good this sort of thing happened early in spring training, because one thing is abundantly clear. Umpires have been instructed to enforce the pitch clock rule strictly. It's the only way MLB believe they'll work. So hitters and pitchers both know, be ready early. I think that's a good mindset to have. Obviously, like I said, you don't want to see something like this happen late in the season, or God forbid in a playoff game, something like that. I saw people joking on Twitter where they were like, oh, I can't wait for Game 7 of the World Series to be decided by an automatic strike 3 or an automatic 4th ball because of a balk or something like that. So I think it's good the umpires are enforcing it. Same thing like Jeff Passan said, you're going to have these little moments where guys maybe forget what's going on, or, have something like that. But it has to be done. Like you said, it showed that it's worked so far with the time being down. Some of the other things, some thoughts on the clock as a whole, because some teams have done it differently. Seeing the clock and stuff like that, or, I've seen some people on Twitter that are, don't like being able to see the clock. The Padres had, the way they'd set it up, was they had on their backstop, it was like a giant shot clock, which I didn't really like. And some people didn't like either, but Mike Monaco and Nesson, the broadcast, he shared how Nesson's going to do it this year. And on their little game ticker thing that they have, they're going to show it only when the clock reaches 10 seconds. So it'll flash up there. Personally, I don't mind seeing the clock. I think it was a little weird at first seeing, like I said, guys sped up, because you don't really know how much time's left on the clock. But as a whole, I think it's been good so far. I think we have obviously talked about it. For baseball, it is something that is long overdue, and has seemingly worked so far.
Yeah, I mean, same sentiment for me. No complaints, and I think they're going to have to work out some kinks, but this is probably going to work in the end.
You would think, like,
it's different once you get to the postseason, and if this is like, I wonder if this becomes a situation where like they kind of lean back on it if it's like a intense postseason situation.
That's what I was wondering too, like
way in the future and not relevant right now, but like it's something to think about. And man, if this becomes a thing where games are being decided in these vastly different fashions now, people are gonna lose their minds, dude.
Yeah, see, I thought the same thing.
This has like awesome to catastrophic potential.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's what makes it exciting to me.
absolutely. Like I thought the same thing the other day, and then thinking about it more, I'm like, well, again, the joke about Game 7 being decided by something like this. At that point, like you're going to be whatever team it is, you're going to be well over 200 games in it, or probably close to it at this point with spring training games, the regular season, obviously, and then however long you go in the postseason. So maybe I have to assume guys at that point, that late in the year, are going to be used to it. So you're probably not going to see as many screw ups as you are at the start of the year. Like you're going to have moments, like I said, where guys forget that they have to be in the box, or guys forget, like you saw with the Red Sox pitcher that did it, the disengagement stuff where a guy gets rewarded second base. You're going to see these type of f ups early on in the season, but as it goes on, I think. And again, like Jeff Passan said, it's good that the umpires are sticking to this. They're not being, all that lenient to start the year. Hopefully, as the season goes on, it's not going to be a problem because, like you said, if there's a game or two that comes down to, a mess up with the clock or someone doesn't get ready in time, you are going to have a massive problem. And I think you're going to hear from the people that are already against the pitch clock come out, in full force. But like I said, you and I, with how it's gone so far, you just seeing the stuff on Twitter, me watching a couple games here and there, like it's good for the game. It definitely makes it more interesting. Obviously, we could go into, how the shift has changed some things. It's just watching some games as well. The fact that there's no shift has drastically changes the way, offense has gone so far, at least in the games I've watched too, which is good for it. The basis thing, I don't have it here in the outline, but I just wanted to bring that up too. I know it's something you and I talked about. We didn't think that the bigger bases were going to matter. And, maybe there were some people that were pushing against that. You really don't notice it watching on a broadcast. So like I said, just wanted to bring that up in case there were still people that were up in arms about that. That was one of the minor changes that, may not really matter in the end. But as a whole, off to a good start with the pitch clock stuff. Yes, it's been weird. You've had some pushback. I saw, I think it's Cardinals pitcher Jose Quintana. He got shelled in his first outing. He gave up like 5 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning, and then immediately was like, "Yeah, I felt sped up. I don't know how. I'm going to be able to adjust the pitch clock." Like, so you're already having a little bit of pushback there. But as a whole, the most part, guys seemingly have taken to it, and you really haven't had any huge problems outside of this one little incident in the Red Sox Marlins game, or Red Sox Braves game, excuse me. That I feel like you're not going to see, like I said, as the season goes on.
Yeah, I don't really have much of a problem with it right now. Still, baseball is very much like a wait and see sport for me. Whether it's
Absolutely.
the team, meaning the Red Sox, or the league. So unless it's something I'm vehemently against, I'm just kind of like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I don't know if give it a test run is the right word, because I think this is something that's going to stick being the pitch clock. But like, let's give it a full season. Before we have any, this is really stupid, or this is, the greatest thing on the planet. It could go either way. So give it a full season, see how it works out. If things need to be tweaked next off season, let's wait until next off season. But same thing, wait and see mode. But early, screenings for me, I think it's been good so far, and it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think all we have so far to base it off is like they implemented something similar to this in the minors, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's where they started it. That's what I think too. You're seeing like Cutter Crawford was one of the guys, obviously has major league experience, but was pitching in the minors. He had to go through it. He talked about it during the broadcast of the game he started. But he's a guy you could see right out of the gate. Was pretty comfortable with it. Get on the mound, throw the ball, get it back, rinse and repeat. So it's I don't think it's going to be as hard as a transition as maybe some people think, because obviously you have a lot of these minor league guys that are going to be on big league teams that are used to it by now. And obviously the major league guys will get caught up to speed in spring training. And, again, it's not going to go swimmingly to start the season. I think you're going to have maybe some things here and there that go wrong. But like you said, it's a work in progress type of thing. And they'll hopefully get any kinks that they might have problems with, fixed by the middle of the season, later on in the season. And again, I think it should be good for baseball.
Yeah, I think it'll honestly work out in the end. So we'll just have to wait and see, barring any type of catastrophe that could happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is possible, but we'll
you cross your fingers and hope that doesn't happen. But again, very well could be a possibility with how things have handled or been handled for baseball before. But this is, again, light at the end of the tunnel type of thing where you hope it works out. And again, the data has shown that games times have been cut into, so that's good at least.
Yeah, we'll take it. I figured for hockey we start with the big Bruins trade and then get into trade stuff and then get into the game recaps and looking ahead before things get really crazy for the Bruins in about a little less than a week's time.
Sure, works for me.
So yeah, I mean, the Bruins traded for Garnet Hathaway and Dmitry Orlov. It was funny when I first found out about these moves. I saw Hathaway at first from Elliot Friedman's tweet. I was like, okay, we're getting Hathaway. There's the forward move I was expecting. And then like 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, they're getting Orlov too. And I'm like, damn it, why do I have to be driving home while this is happening?
Mhm.
Because I was getting texted about it. I was like, I can't even look at Twitter. I'm driving.
I texted it to you, though. It's like, oh, look at these two guys.
Like, what's going on?
Mhm.
I'm like, perfect timing for me to get this news while I'm driving home and can't react to it or respond to texts or anything. But
that was a really bad time, not to cut you off, but because one of the texts I sent you was I think the first tweets was that it was Clifton that was going back in the deal too. And that kind of blew up all over Twitter, that everyone was like, man, that, and I was one of them too, where I texted you. I'm like, shit, Clifton's the one that's going back. And then that immediately got, taken out because it wasn't true. So it was kind of
pranked.
Yeah, because it's been a week of pranks, a day of pranks so far. So, but yeah, I mean, like, just kind of to add on to your point, like the craziness of it all, you got kind of lucky that you didn't get to see it and sit through it and kind of wonder who the hell was going back or what the trade was. But also, like you said, kind of it stinks the position you were in not being able to see it actually all unfold.
Yeah, it was chaos. Like we had Smith, Clifton, Zaboral being speculated, then that got disputed, and we end up with Orlov and Hathaway going to Boston. For Minnesota, they got the rights to KHL forward 27-year-old Andrei Svetlikov. Not expecting him to ever sign with the Bruins, but it's kind of like a guy you keep on the reserve list in case he wants to come over to the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
You can sign him if you want, whatever. Just kind of a throw-in, I guess. For whatever reason, Minnesota felt inclined to get rid of the rights. The Bruins then Craig Smith, their 2023 first, which is now in the hands of the Toronto Maple Leafs, as we'll get to later, has already been flipped by Washington. A 2025 second and a 2024 third. The Caps retained 50% of the Orlov contract, and then Minnesota, for their troubles, retaining 25% additionally of Orlov's contract. Get a 2023 fifth, which they have also flipped to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Gustav Nyquist. So these Bruins picks on the move are already getting flipped. And we'll get into it later, but it's worked out pretty well for the Bruins so far. Orlov and Hathaway have been pretty much instant contributors. Took them a little bit of time in the Vancouver game to start, but Orlov had a great game last night. Hathaway had a pretty crafty assist in his second game as a Bruin. And first impressions, like I said, I was cool with just getting Orlov or just getting Hathaway. And then Orlov was added to the mix. I was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. Because it got to the point where my dreams were realized, where we weren't getting Gavrikov.
Oh, I was going to say that was
my main thing.
Yeah.
I was like, we're not getting Gavrikov. This is awesome. I would have been cool with just Hathaway. But we're getting Orlov too, a much better player than Gavrikov, much better puck mover, better defenseman in transition. Gavrikov, there's a misconception that he's this big physical defenseman because he's a big guy, but he's really not. Orlov doesn't hit all the time, but when he hits, he makes his presence known.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nothing I dislike about Orlov. And I mean, after the game last night, how can you?
I don't. Yeah, I was
playing.
Mm-hmm.
He's really sturdy and a tough defenseman. There's no hesitation from him, and that's the type of guy I like in this situation for the Bruins to add.
Mm-hmm.
And Hathaway, we know the billing with Hathaway, playing him for so long now, these last few years with the Capitals. He's a pain in the ass. Like, out of bottom six forwards in the league, you could make the case he's the biggest pain in the ass to play with or play against, rather. Maybe a few years ago you'd see Milan Lucic, but he's slowed down a little bit. I love him, but he's still that big physical presence and can kick people's asses. But he's slowed down a little bit. But Garnet Hathaway, man, I don't know if there's anybody besides maybe like a guy like Noel Acciari or Nick Delorier that hits harder than him and is as good at fighting as a guy like Nick Delorier. Acciari's not as much of a fighter, but man, this is a slam dunk deal for the Bruins. Giving up a first round pick sucks, and I've had my suspicions about trading that first round pick. But when you're getting a very impactful physical fourth liner, and a guy that can play anywhere in your defensive core, that's when it's worth it on top of dumping a contract you had to dump in order to make this work financially. I'm fine with this. If it was for Gavrikov, I'm much less fine with it. If in fact, I'm not fine with it at all. So
As you made very well known.
This was a sigh of relief for me. I love the deal. The results are already paying dividends. And right now, the Bruins are in an exploratory stage with Orlov, moving him all around the lineup. Grizzly, Clifton, Carlo have all been out of the lineup to try and find the right fits and kind of, I think, throw teams off the scent. You give all these different looks with defensive pairings, it makes teams harder to scout you ahead of the deadline. So I think we'll see a lot more of this. And, in-game movement, like some games we'll see Orlov and McAvoy, but we'll see him move up and down the lineup. See Carlo maybe a little bit, Clifton, whatever it is. I love the options they have now, and it gives them plenty time to solidify things well ahead of the playoffs. So works for me. Love the trade. Don't love giving up the first round pick, but it's much more palatable in a deal like this that you're already getting payoff from than it would have been giving up the pick for Gavrikov. I'm fine with it in the end. I love the deal. I feel like you're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it knocked out two of the things we've been talking about for a while. What do they need? They need a depth forward with some, some veteran experience. They need a defenseman. You and I were kind of leaning defenseman. They get that obviously in Orlov, and he's been excellent so far. Like you said, you saw that on display last night. Paired with Lindholm, I was going to ask you that, moving forward, what I like your idea of, I didn't even think of it, giving teams different looks and kind of throwing them off the scent, like you said. But, what would your ideal pairings look like? What, obviously, like I said, Lindholm, it seemed to work out really well last night, but it took Carlo out of the lineup. So going forward, if you had to make, a set in stone type of thing, who's the guy you think Orlov is the best to be paired with? And what does that mean for, some of the other guys? Or like, who's the guy, I guess, that's probably going to have to ride the bench a little bit here, be out of the lineup more so than not?
Yeah, I think it's Connor Clifton. That was my guy from the start. And right now, Grizzly and McAvoy is the old reliable pair if you need something sturdy. But Grizzly, in the grand scheme of things, with Clifton out of the lineup, makes the most sense on the right side of Forbert to me. We haven't seen it yet, but we've seen Grizzly there in the past. I think him and Orlov fit the type of mold of, mobile, better puck moving transition defenseman than a guy like what's his name? I was thinking of moving Forward over. Like I've seen some people suggest Forward to me doesn't make sense as a right shot defenseman. Or as a right side defenseman. So with Orlov looking really good with Lindholm last night on the right side,
I think you have to stick with that.
That's kind of what you're looking at. Yeah.
Okay.
But who knows? They can move things around. Grizzly and McAvoy is fine, but it gets to a point where to make things work in terms of the handedness of your defenseman, you're probably going to have to go Grizzly, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, and Forbert, Orlov, even though that didn't work amazingly in the Vancouver game. I think it can work fine because I don't think they want to put Forbert and Carlo together. Two similar defensemen. Two your slower defensemen. I think that's a good pairing in concept in your own zone. But in terms of like moving, I think they're going to get beat a lot. And I don't think Jim Montgomery wants that. So having that flexibility with Grizzly and Orlov gives you a lot of options. And with the position they're in the standings and not having to like battle for points right now, it makes moving things around like they've been doing and trying different looks and putting different guys out of the lineup temporarily much more easier. Much more easier is terrible English. Much easier.
There you go. Yep.
You get my point.
I get the gist of what you're going for.
They're going to shuffle things around. I think in the end, Orlov ends up as the right shot guy because they probably don't want to put Forbert and Carlo together, or else we probably would have seen that more this season. Just at least on an exploratory basis. Because I mean, we know what Grizzly and McAvoy are, and Lindholm and Clifton have been a really good pairing together. So I feel like if that opportunity was there, they would have tried it. I can't think of a time they have. So defense is kind of in flux, but like that really puts the Bruins at the same time in a position of strength because you don't ideally want Connor Clifton as your seventh defenseman,
Mhm.
but I don't
It's a
think
good
there's a
problem to
team.
have.
I don't think there's a team exactly. I don't think
Mhm.
there's a team in the league that has a better seventh defenseman than Connor Clifton.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. That's what I mean.
So
We talk about him having a career year 2 or 3, either last show or 2 shows ago, and then now he's again stinks and he's going to be probably your seventh defenseman, like you said. But like again, that's a luxury you can afford to have at this point in the season.
yeah, I mean this just sets them up even like way better to be a contender going into the playoffs. And it's just a slam dunk move. Like I said, trading the first stinks because it's such a stacked draft class, but hopefully that pick ends up being pick 32. I
Mhm.
don't like the people diminishing the pick. It's like, oh yeah, it doesn't mean anything to give up. It's gonna be pick 32 or pick 30. Like it is still a first round pick. It's
Well,
still
my
primo draft capital, but I understand what people were getting at there, but like at the same time, I don't because it's not a guaranteed thing that it's the 32nd or 30th pick, whatever.
true. Yep.
And it's still a first round pick. That is a primo player in an extremely deep, uncharacteristically deep draft class, maybe like in the ranks of 2003, which was a historically good class in 2015 with McDavid, Eichel, so on and so forth. So
My other question about that really quick too that I was going to ask you, did you have, because I had a question, I was talking to my grandfather about this and he was on the side of, surprised that they gave up a first round pick for 2 expiring contracts like Orlov and Hathaway. Do you have any, not concerns, but surprise at all there that that's the route they went down? Or, I mean, 2 players of their caliber, veterans, guys that, obviously can step right in as they have and perform well. I feel like you're going to have to give up a first round pick to get those type of players. So any
yeah.
concerns there or just not really care that much about? I mean, like you said, you cared obviously about the first round pick, what they gave up to get for it, but any concerns there about what they had to move to get these 2 guys or no?
No, not like super overwhelming concerns. And at the same time, it comes back to Gavrikov. Like I would have much rather given up that first round pick for expiring contracts for Orlov and Hathaway versus Gavrikov and maybe Matthew Olivier. Apparently, they were in on Matthew Olivier too, was who like kind of like a younger version of Hathaway type of guy. Like he's not Hathaway level, but he
Mhm.
really just hits people. Like he's a right winger that's much younger than Hathaway, but he runs around and he hits people. And that is useful to Columbus. He plays on the same line as Corelli oftentimes in Columbus. But yeah, I understand the suspicion, but I kind of wonder at the same time. I think there's a scenario where they keep Hathaway for another year or two
Mhm.
after this year. I think that's possible. Not super likely, but definitely possible. And I kind of wonder if Orlov impresses them enough, if they decide to move on from Forbert's less likely because he's the big, sturdy, stay-at-home defensive penalty killing guy.
Yep.
I don't want them to move on from Matt Grizzlick, but if they see Orlov as a good enough fit, I wonder if they move on from Grizzlick and commit to Orlov.
Mhm.
But I have a hard time believing right now that's something they've pondered.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's something like if they like him enough, they could be like, this forces our hand. He's such a good fit. Do we want to make this drastic change or not? But it's more so something to just think about.
Gotcha. Yep.
But
That's
I
another
don't
thing.
think,
It's like cross that
yeah,
bridge when you come to it type of thing.
yeah, that and it's just more so like they look like rentals, but I don't think they're guaranteed rentals.
Okay.
Like
I
there
see.
are
Yeah,
some
I
guys you
gotcha.
see that are guaranteed rentals.
Mhm.
I don't think these guys are set in stone right now, but um, time will tell there. Next up for the Bruins on the trade front was one that kind of dropped out of nowhere. Keith Kincaid traded to Colorado for some goaltending depth for them and a 1-for-1 swap for former 28th overall pick in 2017. Shane Bowers, who's a former Boston University Terrier, one career NHL game with Colorado, has 59 points in 154 AHL games. A guy that was pretty highly touted coming out of BU. Obviously warrants a first round pick, but hasn't really happened for him so far. Hasn't translated, has a decent career at BU, but has just been a career AHLer. It's just one of those deals where like they wanted to get something for Keith Kincaid
Mhm.
and they could have just got future considerations, but Colorado's like, sure, you can have Shane Bowers.
Works for
There's
us.
nothing to complain about for this deal. Keith Kincaid's been fine down in Providence, but this frees up spots for, more starts for Brandon Bussey, who's been fantastic. The right-handed catcher, and I believe he's a right-handed catcher, actually. I might be wrong there. In Providence as a rookie out of Western Michigan, maybe in the conversation for AHL Rookie of the Year. I don't know, but he's been phenomenal as a rookie. They have Mikey DiPietro, who you got as part of the Jackson Nika trade, and you have Kyle Keyser, who's been there for a few years now. Gives them more opportunities for starts across the ECHL with Maine Mariners and the AHL with the Providence Bruins. Bowers is just depth. Maybe they give him a little shot at some point this season. I doubt it, but it's just kind of like there's a little bit of value there.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to give us future considerations, we'll just take him. And I assume Colorado has plans for him as a call-up option when they need him. So fine trade there, kind of came out of nowhere, but no real complaints from me. On to game recaps, unless you had any thoughts on the Shane Bowers.
No, I was just gonna say it was obviously a weird trade on paper, seeing the a goalie get dealt. But makes sense from the points that you made. The other thing I saw some people discuss on Twitter, I think it was a TikTok video talking about the trade and brought up a decent point, saying obviously there's questions with the Bruins centers down the line. Obviously Bergeron and Krejci after this season, like Bowers is a name, again not the flashiest name, but like you said, a former first round pick. Maybe change of scenery type of thing. This is a guy you give a shot, maybe down the line somewhere, see if he sticks here, see if gives you something. So in that sense, it's a move that I guess makes some sense for both teams. And, like you said, it's just a depth move. So I don't know how you can get upset about it or have any really sort of strong opinions on it either way.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he sticks around next year and is in the mix to play fourth line center. He's
gives you options
next year.
Yep.
Yeah, it just gives you options. Like if you don't retain Nosek, he's in the mix for 4C. So nothing to really complain about, honestly.
Nope.
And like I said, it's better than just getting future consideration. So which they easily could have gotten. But getting into the past week of games, we had Seattle to start. A 6-5 win on the road. Jeremy Swayman makes 36 saves, on 41 shots. Matty Beniers kind of put the damper on things early for the Bruins, scoring 40 seconds in. Then Krejci scores on one knee about 10 minutes later to tie things up. Pasternak's goal, I'd say one of the goals of the year for the Bruins. But in terms of like how good Pasta is, he made that look like so
it's just
easy.
Another goal for him. Like it comes easy. It's like he's just toying with people out there.
He was just like it kind of looked like for his standards, he did it in slow motion. Like,
yeah.
It just looked way too easy for him. That goes for number 42 for him. Marchand and Bergeron later connect for a shorthanded goal. I know everybody's shocked about that one. Never happens for them.
Must be a day that ends in Y.
Yeah, must be a day that ends in Y. Yanni Gord doinks one off of McAvoy's blading in. That was tough for McAvoy. He was like, I don't know why, but that made me think of like when like Mario Luigi die in like a Mario game, like
Okay.
That was tough, but the Bruins end up, pulling it out. Carlo ties it late in the game, and DeBrusk ends it on a tip to make it 6-5. Marchand eventually got fined for a slew foot on Oliver Bjorkstrand. I thought it was kind of a ticky-tacky slew foot, not much in your conventional sense, but I think a lot of people jumped on that term given the fact that it was Marchand, which is reasonable, I guess. But the Bruins pull it out, a high-scoring affair in Seattle. Vancouver up next, a 3-1 win. Linus Ullmark, 26 saves on 27 shots. That is third star of the month. Linus Ullmark, second star of the week. Orlov and Hathaway both make their debuts. Not Linus. I don't know why in my head when I'm thinking of them, I get Linus and Hampus both because they're Swedish mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, similar sounding.
I guess it makes sense, but he scores on a point hammer. Brad Marchand scores in a kind of fashion like reminiscent sort of some of his goals against the Canucks in 2011, but he loves scoring against the Canucks. And Linus Ullmark, I think he's the 9th goalie maybe ever. I think I saw it to score.
I think they said that.
NHL.
Yeah, I'm watching the post game. I'm pretty sure that sounds familiar. That they said the same thing.
It happens more often in like developmental leagues in college, but I think he's the 9th goalie ever to score in the NHL. I mean, as if the craziness of the season can't get any more crazier.
Crazy. Yeah. It's just how the season's gone. So like, just when you think that they've shown you everything they have, and again, that's what that was going to be when if you asked at the end of this, what the biggest takeaway, like just when you think that you've seen everything from this team, they just show you something else spectacular. Obviously this wasn't even the greatest thing. I think you could argue that Omar, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, that he did on this road trip. But just obviously, I mean, the Bruins have been trying this. I think he's tried it a couple times this year. Swayman obviously was the name that comes to mind when you think of the trying to score a goal this year. Great to see one of them finally get it done. And then to me personally, it was a shame that I wanted the game to be close in Edmonton, wanted Swayman to start. The fact that he never got a chance to shoot the puck because Edmonton never was able to pull their goalie kind of sucked. But yeah, a great season for Olmark. Just gets even sweeter with the goal in this one.
Yep. And like we'll get to with the Calgary game, his hard trophy case is becoming stronger.
I think he absolutely. We talked about that before, and I don't know. I'm still kind of on the same boat as I was before, where it's like he has the Vezina, he could win. Like, yep. Again, McDavid I've argued before. Yep, the same. Same thing for baseball. Pitchers have their own awards. Should they really be in MVP consideration? You said it. Every game he comes out, he's doing more and more to stake a claim for being a potential MVP candidate.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Igor situation last year with the Rangers.
Absolutely.
We will see what happens. I think the Vezina has to be locked up at this rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the handshake line, he went down the line, which was that was
cool to see. Yep,
it was just an awesome thing all around. Like he was saying, Carlo was like shouting at him, he's like, "It's going in, it's going in." And yeah, I mean, Swayman's got to be a little jealous. His best friend. Speaking of Swayman, he made 22 saves on 24 shots against Edmonton for another win on the 27th. Connor McDavid scores pretty early on, but he is met by his elite counterpart, Tomas Nosek, as we all expected.
Yep.
Scores 13 seconds after. And then Nick Foligno gives them the lead. When Stuart Skinner just like kind of got out of the way for him, that was kind of a weird one. Didn't really see that coming, but, to each their own when you're Stuart Skinner, I guess. Then Connor McDavid, just hits 50 for fun. Klim Kostin gets the puck to him, and it's just a free one. He got Jeremy Swayman to bite big time. But Pavel Zacha, with a wacky little game winner in front of the net, ends this one for the Bruins. Eventually ends this one for the Bruins. But another win. This game was annoying, not only because it was at 8:30, but like I was more terrified watching McDavid than I ever have been in my life.
Yeah, it's just
he was every single shift. He was all over the place.
Yep.
And which you'll see games like that with him all the time. But in terms of games against the Bruins, I haven't seen anything like that. And I was like, oh my god, I was just freaking out the whole game.
It's one of those things, and again, not to cross sports, but everyone will always argue this with like Mike Trout and the Angels. It's like being on the East Coast, you don't get to see this guy play every night, so it's kind of like a crazy thing to watch him play. And same thing, like I'm watching the game with my dad. He said the same thing. He's like, Jesus Christ, this McDavid guy was all over the ice the entire game. Like he is as fast as they come, and is the reason why he's obviously the best player in the game. Like it is on display shift after shift.
Insane. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind segueing us into the Calgary game real quick, I have to take a quick bathroom break, but
okay, right, not a great timing for you to do this, but
but we'll get right into it. Don't worry about it.
All right, no worries. So in the Calgary game, watching that last night, of course, as I mentioned, it was the greatest thing Linus Ullmark has done. It's crazy to say, obviously having a goal in the Vancouver game, but you talk about a goalie standing on his head, 54 saves and 57 shots. The Bruins were outshot 57-20, the most saves from a Bruins goalie, as Mike has here. And it was also the largest shot differential ever, just going to show, how great of a game it was for the Bruins. I'm sure as Mike will get into when he gets back here, Nick Foligno, don't know if it was a Charlie horse or a knee-on-knee type of thing. You hope it was just a minor knee-on-knee thing, but obviously got hit in the game, left, couldn't really skate under his own power, so not a great looking there. Does that force the Bruins maybe to make another move at the trade deadline? I'll get Mike's thoughts on that when he comes back. But I think it wouldn't be the worst thing to go maybe, look for a cheap option to replace Foligno get another guy that maybe has some postseason experience under his belt if he's going to miss an extended period of time. Interesting that Dan Vladar was pulled, gives up 2 goals on 5 shots. I think that, that's not the craziest idea to have to pull the goalie, but again, from that Bruins tie-in, little interesting there. As Mike has here, as he said earlier, Lindholm and Orlov's worked very well. You're back now. I'm trying to run through this as best as I could. The big question I wanted to ask you from this game, obviously the Foligno injury. I said it right before you came back. Personally, I don't think it would hurt the Bruins to maybe look for another depth forward right before the deadline to see if they can get some sort of replacement if Foligno's out. But what are your thoughts on kind of him moving forward, or if you've seen anything maybe that I haven't on his condition?
Yeah, the Foligno injury has been a weird one because I feel like we haven't seen anything
on it. Yeah.
Besides him struggling to get to the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me a little bit worried, but I don't know. It looked pretty bad. So,
well, that's what I mean. Like on first glance, it looked, or at least I thought, like I said, again, right before you jump back in, like Charlie Horse knee on knee type of thing. But then, like you mentioned, when he can't even put any pressure on it to go back to the bench, and as long it took him as long as it did to get off the ice, like you hope it's not anything structural damage wise, but I can't imagine like if it was, knee on knee, it wouldn't have taken as long as it did for him to get back and as bad as it looked.
Yeah, I feel like if it was structural damage at this point, which it certainly could be,
you'd know
I
about.
think we'd know it at this point. I think that's one injury across sports you hear about pretty quickly.
True. Yeah.
I hope that's not the case, but because man, that would just be an absolute kick in the balls for a guy that's had a crazy bounce back season given his role.
Yep.
But yeah, we're really just in wait and see mode on Foligno. Really sucks happened early on, but the Bruins powered through it. I'm sure you've touched on this. Linus Olmark, 54 saves on 57 shots is preposterous. They're outshot by 37.
You talk about the definition of standing on your head. Like people have talked about it all day. The reason they won that game, like without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, this is undoubtedly his best performance as a Bruin, even letting up 3 goals. Like he'll take that when he's making 54 saves.
Absolutely. Yep.
They're outshot 57-20. There were stretches like 43-9, 45-9, like crazy shot advantages for the Flames. This game was just kind of I feel like not a precursor, like a definition of their season. Like they're a team that can be really good, but the goal scoring hasn't quite been where they liked it to be. And the goaltending has been rough. Jacob Markstrom has not lived up to the hype from last year when he was really good. And Dan Vladar's had his moments, but not great. He gets pulled from after 2 goals and 5 shots. And Markstrom comes in relief duty. I think Andy Berkeley made a good point on the broadcast. Like, it's 2 goals and 5 shots. It's early. You can definitely, give him a little more breathing room. But like where the Flames are, like kind of sort of more so on the outside looking in.
They're teetering
more with time in that Western Conference wildcard picture. Daryl Sutter just said, like, look, we got to try and win this game as best we can.
We need someone on their A game, and you just don't have it tonight. Yeah.
Even if it's a guy that's struggling, like, you got to try it. And I respect Daryl Sutter for that. Like, he's a veteran coach. I, respect the bold decision there. I imagine, Vladar understood it too. This is a team that wants to make the playoffs. Mackenzie Weegar's comments, recently, he, believes they can make this push to the playoffs. I'm sure they understood it. It's a little bit, tough to deal with, but this game was insane. Lindholm and Orlov, our first glance at them, were fantastic together. Like really, really good. I wonder if this is the main second pairing for the rest of the season, but we'll see. Like we talked about earlier, Orlov, 2 goals and an assist, a huge reason why they had a chance of pulling this off. Coleman, Dubé, Huberdeau end up scoring 3 times in a row after Orlov scores twice in a row. Back and forth. It was one of those games where like the Bruins were winning despite getting outshot, and you're just kind of waiting for like the Flames to break through and take control, and they did with the Dubé and Huberdeau goals. I was kind of fading at that point in the night. It's hard for me to stay out for these late games at this point with my work schedule, but I'm like, God damn, we got to wake up in the morning. They're going to lose this one in a tough way. And I'm like, well, I'm stupid. Like with this team, like,
well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't want to say, like,
unbelievable.
it's going to sound crazy, but I mean, I've said it before when we've talked about this team, and just, I said it earlier that, you know, they find ways to, like, they go down 3 or they give the lead away. Obviously they're getting outplayed the entire night, but sitting there watching that game, I stayed up, watched the whole thing. I'm like, it's the way this season's gone. This freaking team's going to find a way to at least tie this. Like, if they lose in overtime, okay, but they're going to find a way to tie it up. That's just what they've done. And of course, it's Zacha again, because the guy's an absolute goal scoring machine, unless you ask a Devils fan and they think the guy sucks. But you know, again, just the ending to the game, the overtime was insane. It was more of the same of just Calgary absolutely dominating, and the Bruins. I think I tweeted it out. Jack Edwards, his I think goal call was, you know, they pulled a rabbit out of the hat. I'm like, if he on air would have been like, they legitimately pulled this game out of their asses, I think Nesson should have just let that slide, because that's absolutely would have been the perfect way to describe the type of game the Bruins play. Because I mean, they were dominated pretty much. I mean, Olaf, like you said, got off to 2 quick goals, but like it was a game they were never in any place to win, with how, you know, bad it looked at times and just how bad it got, especially when Calgary went on their run. But again, this team's just resilient and able to pull a game out that they never should have been able to. But that's just the theme of this team.
Yeah, this team really is a fever dream sometimes. It's crazy. Olaf to Zacha late. Like you were talking about with Zacha, like New Jersey fans think this guy sucks. I don't. He just keeps proving it. And then in overtime, I think, I forget who mentioned this, but like someone mentioned they posted the clip of the whole sequence from Orlov, and not Orlov, McAvoy, all the way into the offensive zone with like that defensive zone face-off that led to the overtime goal. It was like 17.4 seconds left. They made all of that happen in less than 17 seconds.
Oh, it was like in the blink of an eye it happened. It's like unbelievable.
This team, when they have things going, is practically unstoppable. Like, I was thinking, my first thought when they made the Orlov trade too is like, this might be the deepest defensive core I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
you know, I can go back a little bit, you know, towards when we were younger in like the early to mid 2000s, and I'm sure there, you know, might be one better, but like in the last decade, like I don't know if there's a deeper defensive core. Maybe some of those Blackhawks defensive cores in their heyday, maybe LA here or there, but like this defensive core is ridiculous. And it just starts with McAvoy here. He gets the puck up in transition. McAvoy, Marchand, mixing up my M's here. Gets things going, plants his feet, drives deep to the net, ends up with the puck behind the net to Bergeron, or McAvoy, Marchand to Bergeron to McAvoy, bam. Like, these things are just what makes this team really have an X factor. You know, you're not going to play 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs, but like, these are the type of sequences that in a clutch moment in the playoffs really has to inspire more confidence.
Absolutely. Yep.
In the team. Because like they could easily just, taking it up, nothing materializes. You have a couple quick last minute chances in overtime. Then you go to the overtime and see the shootout and see what happens. This feels like they had a set play. They had a set sequence from 200 feet down the ice all the way. Late
in the game, break this out, see if we can get it to go, and if it works,
this feels like something along the lines of something they drew up. And I mean, we're talking about Ullmark being the runaway Vezina candidate. Like, Jim Montgomery has to have a more solid cushion with the Jack Adams Award than anyone ever.
Oh, I wouldn't argue that in the slightest.
Like, what he has been able to instill in this team is like nothing I've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
He was asked. I was going to say too, he was asked, because I listened to the interview they did with him at the end of the game, and I think it was Brick that brought it up, talking about when Calgary went on their run, the Bruins got down with obviously it being back-to-backs and guys looking like they were skating on their last leg and the energy level not being there. And he talked about like teams, you've seen teams in the past that could have just like rolled over and died and said, all right, we'll go 3-1 on the trip. We're fine there. like we'll go back home with it's okay. You know, we took the trip as a whole, and in Montgomery, I think said that, you know, talking about the resilience of the team and just, you know, knowing what type of things were at stake. So, I mean, the guy, I don't know how much coaching you have to do when you have this level of talent on this team and guys are playing like this. And you have, like you said, the clear cut runaway Vezina favorite. But what he's done for this team, it's been like night and day. It's insane.
Yeah. And he said it early on, like when I forget what game it was, but like they were struggling after 2 periods and Foligno said, like, let me take over in intermission. Like, let me talk to the team. Like, he knows.
It was the Winter Classic game, wasn't it?
It was. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. I don't know why I thought it was just some regular game.
Mm-hmm.
He knows his role. Like, he knows when he needs to step up and he knows when he, you know, there aren't really teams like this in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that from the start. Like, it seems like he was willing to do this. This is not just something he's like, okay, I gotta, you know, understand that this is gonna happen every once in a while. It seems from the start like this is something he knew he was ready for.
Yep.
Like, it's really like the synergy from the locker room to the on ice product and the coaching staff is really on another level.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they didn't lose this game by 6 goals is unfathomable.
Insane. Nope.
Like, they got their shit pushed for like 35-40 minutes of this game, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
And they won by a goal. Like, this
well, that's what I mean. The whole
really is on another level. It's insane.
You talked
I
about
can't say enough about it.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I mean, you talk about it was really, again, and not that it energized the team or anything. And again, Berkeley said that on the broadcast, but you mentioned like pulling Vladar, obviously something that seemed like had to be done right from the second period on. It's Calgary turned it on. You could tell just, again, watching the whole game, you know, they turned the pressure up. So right from that second period until what did Zacha score with? 5 minutes left in the third period. I don't have the box. So yeah. So yeah, right up until that. And then even after that, you know, Calgary gave one little extra push towards the end of the game and then into overtime. And obviously McAvoy scores with like 4.5 seconds left. So they were dominated, you could say, for like 95% of that game and still found a way to win it. And again, that just shows the type of resilience that this team has. And I've said it before, like they could be down 4 goals and I don't think it would be too crazy to sit there and go, okay, well, they have a period and a half left. So who's to say they're not going to chip into this, you know, come out with a 5-4 win? Like, that's just the way this team has operated this season. Again, not that they've gotten behind in games, but there really hasn't been a game where you're like, all right, this one is just not going to go their way. It seems like they'll find a way to at least get back into it and maybe get a point out of it if they're not playing well. And that's what you saw obviously happen last night.
Yeah, this game was like a stamp of approval on a team that we didn't know needed this like type of stamp of approval. Like, there hasn't been a Bruins game like this all year.
It's a statement win in a season that's had plenty, like doesn't have to have any more because they've had so many, it seems like, or they've had so many big clutch performances by different players. Like, again, Olmark has had numerous games where he's been phenomenal, but like this is obviously the not breakout, but you know what I mean? Like the standout game that he's had this season. Like, again, it's just crazy. The night after night, like I said earlier, they give you something else when or give you, you know, a little more than you thought they'd already had this season.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. They've had 3 separate winning streaks of 7 games this season. They've won 9 of 10 and 8 in a row. I mean, when I predicted them to win the division this year, I couldn't have even fathomed this.
Did not, predict it to be a like blowout type of thing where they just ran rampant through the entire league for the entirety of the season.
To break the record, they need to win. They need to go 16-6 the rest of the way. I'm at the point where I'm not even worried about that. Like,
no,
that is extremely attainable with this team. There was no preparing for this type of season.
No,
like we've talked about for so many weeks now of like, oh, it's the same old. They, you know, for the most part, they just keep dominating besides that one stretch where they lost like 3 or 4 in a row. This is where like things are really starting to like come together and be like, holy shit, like this is really different on like a level where it's just like different than being like, oh yeah, they're just good every week. a game like this just completely changes the outlook on the team, I think.
I gotta wonder, like, just thinking about it now, just popped into my head. Like, I obviously teams gearing up for the playoffs have their own situations to worry about. You gotta wonder if like a team, whoever the Bruins are playing, or not, we'll say Buffalo or the Rangers coming up is a better example. Like the Rangers watching this type of game on tape, getting ready for the Bruins game, or just, if there's a team that has the night off watching this game, sitting there going, Jesus Christ, this team, they were down, should have lost this game, like, and then they come back and win it. Like there's not no stopping this team, like, but I feel like you get what I'm getting at here. Like it's a demoralizing thing for maybe the outside looking in to say like, this is a game that the Bruins should have lost. Again, can't say that enough that they are able to pull out and win. Like I wonder if that's demoralizing to teams on the outside looking in, maybe getting ready to play this team, to sit there and go like, we legitimately have to play 3 full periods of hockey, and that might not even be enough to beat this team.
Yeah. And we'll talk about it later with how many teams are loading up.
I was gonna, maybe that's a good example of what the East has done, because holy crap, you talk about it, just one side of the table being absolutely lopsided.
Yeah, teams are there's no sugarcoating it. Teams are scared shitless of the Bruins right
Seems
now.
like it.
Like they are the team to beat without a doubt. Like not even close to a doubt. Next up, only 2 games in between now and our next show. They have
Stupid
Buffalo and
schedule.
the Rangers at home. But speaking of the hockey schedule, we'll get into it a little bit, towards the end of the Rangers little preview here. They got Buffalo tomorrow. Buffalo's 31-24 and 4th in the Atlantic, battling for that second wildcard spot. Tage Thompson's having a career year, 41 goals, 39 assists, and 80 points in 59 games. Just an absolute mega monster for them. In that tweener stage, he's going to be a big X factor for them. We'll see what moves they make. They've been in on a lot of guys, but haven't really done anything yet. So maybe the Sabres make a splash in the next couple of days here. Then you got the Rangers, who have made quite the splash in contrast, acquiring Vladimir Tarasenko, as we know in the past, along with Nico Mikkola. Then you get Patrick Kane this week. My bold prediction, finally get one
Kudos
correct.
to you, absolutely.
Finally get one correct. I predicted Capo Caco to be involved because I, preseason expected Chicago to get much more from Patrick Kane, even with the bigger salary, but that was not the case.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of nailed it there. Credit to me. Feels good. Feels nice to win one from the Kevin Malone quote I tweeted out earlier. Artemi Panarin, as expected, is pacing them on the score sheet this year. He's got 67 points, 60 games, looking a lot different. So it's going to be a much different look team. Of course, we know they got Tyler Mott as well. So it's not just in the scoring department. Their 4th line's looking a little different. So after the break following these games, like 3 days, they play every other day. I think it's from March 7th to April 1st.
Good, as it should be.
Like, come on. Jesus. Every other day.
Oh, that's bad
less than a
from
month.
That's bad from a like health and conditioning standpoint, but as someone, again, like I've been vocal before about like hating the like 3+ days off in between 1 or 2 games. So like, but yeah, I mean, with how not how banged up, but I mean, there are some substantial players out. Obviously, Foligno, Hall hasn't been healthy. So that obviously could come back
could
to
be
haunt.
back tomorrow.
Oh, will he be? Okay, good. I did not see that. So
could be.
Okay.
They sent him home. So like now that they're home, maybe they get to a point where like he plays tomorrow.
Okay.
Against the Rangers, but
that's reassuring though. That's good. I was glad that's not like an extended stay or something for him. So
could miss both games, but they could just have him miss both games and have him back for after that little break they have. So
you'd like him back for that Rangers game, because I was going to say before we jump into all the trade stuff, like I know I just said, and I agree with you, the Bruins are definitely the team to beat, but like the Rangers sitting here right now, unless someone else makes a bigger trade on Friday or leading up to it, like the Rangers are the one team that might actually scare me a little bit, just because of all those factors.
It's Carolina
like,
for me.
Is it still? Oh yeah, that's. Yeah. I mean, there's the connection to obviously being the Bruins bugaboo over the last couple of seasons.
They made a big trade too today.
That,
we'll get into
true, yep. But I mean, the Rangers, like they have the superstar players, plenty of them. Panarin,
superstar goalie.
I was just going to say they have the goalie the goalie that matches the year that Olmark has had, because he had that type of year last year. So like the Rangers, to me, is right up there for the Bruins competition. But I 100% agree with you that Carolina, just because of what they've done to the Bruins over the past couple of years, should be right there with them too.
Yeah, I mean, on the topic of Carolina, I I'm glad they didn't end up with Timo Meyer. Um, that would have been tough, but New Jersey, a team maybe you run into, ends up with Timo Meyer. Again, this is another guy we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how that every other day schedule fares to the Bruins going forward. But let's get into the trade talk. I
There's
just
a lot of
realized
it.
we completely went against the plan I had, which was talking about all the trades first
Oh yeah,
after
you
the
missed
Craig
your
Smith trade. I
moment of the
got caught
week.
up in the mix, but just a prank. Don't worry about it. We might as well get into a quick segment of contract extensions real quick
Okay.
before we get into it. Jake Wallman and Nick Jensen ink 3-year extension with their extensions with their respective teams. Jake Wallman signs for 4.3, I believe, per year, and Nick Jensen signs for 4.05 per year. Wallman with the Red Wings, Jensen with the Capitals. Jensen was a guy that was potentially on the market. Resigns with the Capitals. I know, I saw a lot of Sabres fans wanting him to be that big Sabres pickup after all this time waiting, but it was not 4.3. I knew I was wrong there. 3.4 on Wallman for 3 years, so 10.2. Really nice deal. He's been a good fit with Moritz Seider, who's the defenseman of the future for them. So he's an analytics darling. I like them picking him up. Kind of reminds me of like a Vince Dunn type of situation. Nick Jensen, 3 more years, 32-year-old defenseman. He gets locked up for 4.05. Maybe a little bit of an overpay on him, but he's a solid player. I don't hate that for the Capitals that they shift things around here. And then you get the big one. As a lot of teams looking for centers, maybe even the Bruins, depending on what happens this offseason. Waiting on Dylan Larkin and the Red Wings. He signs an 8-year extension for $69.6, nice $0.6 million, 8.7 per year. Makes a lot of sense. I think it's maybe a slight overpay, but not egregious. I mean, Larkin's a pretty good overall player, still young enough. I think this deal will overall work out pretty well. Face of the franchise, captain of the Detroit Red Wings.
Red Wings.
Red Wings. I almost said Wed Rings. I almost mixed up the
Flipped it. Yeah.
first names there. But other than that, before we get into the trades, I had in the outline earlier today, Chychrun is the main name left on the trade market, but that is not the case
Not
anymore,
happening.
as we'll
Yeah.
get to. But speaking of the Coyotes, Nick Bjugstad, teammate or former teammate of Jacob Chychrun, is the latest to be held out for trade-related reasons, alongside John Klingberg and Dmitry Kulikov in Anaheim. So we'll see. Maybe Nick Bjugstad is the next quick Bruins edition. But look, man, there's a lot to friggin' get into with the NHL trade deadline. Yesterday was bananas. Like,
Did the league forget
out
what
of
day the
this
trade
world.
deadline was on? Like, I feel like this would have been plenty enough for Friday. And I joked with you before we jumped on here. It's like, now watch absolutely nothing go down on deadline day on Friday, because who exactly is left, as you'll get into in a second, like all the names that have jumped around here, but like who is exactly left to be dealt?
There's really not much. Like, it's unbelievable. I can't remember a deadline like this. We'll start from the beginning after the Bowers and Orlov and Hathaway trades. The Rangers got rid of Vitaly Kravtsov for William Lockwood and a 2026 seventh. This is just really to free up cap space for Patrick Kane, and Vitaly Kravtsov has requested a trade multiple times from the Rangers. Gets that done. Don't really have much to say here. He's got a couple Russian friends in the Canucks, so hopefully it works out for him. High ceiling forward, but just wasn't working out, wasn't getting enough playing time with the Rangers. Nino Niederreiter goes to the Winnipeg Jets for a 2024 second. Not the biggest producer, but he drives offense. He's, a good winger with good size. I don't hate that price that Winnipeg had to pay. They needed another scoring winger. Don't hate that deal for them. Not really much to complain about. This one was interesting. Montreal acquires Denis Gurianov for Evgeny Dodonov at half retained. Evgeny Dodonov has already scored for the Stars as a new member of the team. Denis Gurianov, a former first-round pick, high first-round pick that just hasn't really worked out for the Stars. Had that 1 year when they went far in the playoffs. He was scoring a good amount, but just hasn't really translated. The guy that is billed as a sniper just The scoring touch is not translated super well for him. So maybe a change of scenery and with a team that can afford change of scenery. You guys in Montreal works out for him. And Dodonov wasn't in their future plan, so maybe this deal ends up working really well if he can regain that scoring touch for them. But I like the deal in the short term. A more proven scorer for the Stars who are trying to make a postseason push. Outside of being the number one seed right now over there, kind of establish that depth scoring. Dodonov does so, I think. They got a guy the Bruins were in on in Ivan Barbashev. The Blues do not get what they wanted for him. They wanted a first and a second and first or a second and a prospect for him. They get Zach Dean instead, just get the prospect. Zach Dean, pretty good prospect, late first round pick of the Golden Knights in 2021. They get him straight up for Barbashev. The Blues are rebuilding. I like this deal for them. Could they have done a little bit better? Maybe you've gotten like an additional pick. Maybe.
I was going to ask that. Yeah. How do you not get maybe a I don't know, fourth or a fifth, just something as a throw in?
Yeah, that was surprising that it was just a prospect. But Zach Dean projects to be a decent player, had a decent World Juniors for the gold medal winning Canadian team this year. So I don't hate that for them, but we'll see what happens in the long run. Gotta wait to see how Zach Dean pans out. Yeah, Jack Johnson returning to the defending Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks for Andres Englund. Jack Johnson, pretty bad player, but must just be the best locker room guy of all time. Honestly, seems like they loved him last year, so they just get him back pretty much for free. Don't hate that for Colorado. Can't hurt to enrich the locker room a little bit. And then we have one of the big ones. Timo Meier finally gets moved. He goes to the New Jersey Devils at half salary retention with Scott Harrington, who's now an Anaheim Duck, was claimed on waivers. Zachary Amond, who's a goalie prospect. I believe he's hurt for the rest of the year. Santeri Hataka, Finnish defensive prospect, and Timur Ibrahimov, who's playing the ECHL, former 6th-round pick, and a 2024 5th-round pick in exchange for Andreas Janssen. Really for salary purposes, maybe he bounces back there as well. Fabian Zetterlund, who I love, even dating back to his World Junior days with Sweden. I love Fabian Zetterlund. I love the way he plays the game. I think he's an underrated shooter, good speed, decent defensive forward as well. Can really do a lot of different things for you. And then for a team that really needs any defensive prospect help, they get Nikita Oktaltyuk. I definitely butchered that. I don't know how to say this guy's last name. It's a tongue twister for me.
Good luck with the next guy.
Yeah, Shakir Muhammadulin. I know how to pronounce this one. A divisive prospect. He was drafted ahead of his projected range, but he's done pretty well in the KHL. So San Jose really restocks that defensive prospect pool there. I like both of those pickups. You saw Oktaltyuk last year a little bit with the Devils, looked pretty good. So maybe they have some defensive reinforcements on the way there, both left shot defensemen. Then we got a conditional first in 2023 from the Devils, a conditional 2024 second rather, and a 2024 7th. The condition on the first is if it is a top 2 selection somehow, they'll transfer the 2024 first, and the second if they make the 2023 Eastern Conference Final and Meier plays 50% of the games, or New Jersey makes. There's some crazy conditions on these trades, so buckle up, people. If they make the 2024 Eastern Conference Finals, the pick becomes New Jersey's first. So San Jose has a chance to get 2 firsts out of this, which would be awesome for them. I like the deal for both sides on the surface. A lot of these prospects, in terms of mainly the prospects the Devils are acquiring for contract spots. So we'll see how this works out. But in the present day, Timo Meier, elite scorer, young player, a guy the Devils can lock up long term. I love this deal for the Devils. They have Jesper Bratt, who they need to lock up. They have Timo Meier they need to lock up. They have tons of cap space to lock up both. So if you can lock up either, if not both of these guys like Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, who are the future in New Jersey, you got to love this deal if you're the Devils. What was your instant reaction to this one? Because I think it, after a while it took to materialize the details. It took like 2 hours for the details to come out. I think people were pretty shocked.
I can't lie. There were so many names in this at first. I didn't even realize Meier was a part of it. Like, I thought this was just a massive prospect for
Exactly.
prospect trade. And the best thing I saw about this, I can't remember who tweeted it out, but it was like, this is the type of trade that you make in an NHL game.
Yep.
And you just
exactly.
throw players at until the trade actually goes through. Cause I mean, this is something else. The conditions that I was going to ask you too, like how the hell, like what goes into the conditions exactly to make it like, oh, we'll just decide that if you make the conference finals in 2024, that's how this pick will change. Like that's always just a wonder to me. But yeah, a big trade, like you said, obviously the name that stands out the most is Meyer.
Arms race, man.
Yeah, it started early and it seems like it hasn't stopped in the slightest.
Yeah, Timo Meyer is fantastic. It's a huge pickup for the Devils, and I like their chances of extending him long term. Honestly, he's got a $10 million qualifying offer if they want to start there. But if not, they can lock him up for 8 years now and firmly entrench him into part of their future. I would have said this would have been the craziest trade of the day, but the Tanner Jeannot trade rivaled it. Tanner Jeannot was traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning for Cal Foote, a 2023 third, a 2023 fourth, a fifth in 2023, a 2024 second, and a 2025 first round pick, which is top 10 protected. 2025 being, of course, because they gave up a couple first rounders last year for Brandon Hagel. Tampa's all in again. Tanner Jeannot, got Blake Coleman. Why am I forgetting the rest of the names? Tampa makes these moves every year. I'm not going to try and remember the names because I'm drawing a blank right now. They make moves like this every year. Last year it was Nick Paul. It's coming back to me now. They make moves like this, Blake Coleman, Nick Paul, Tanner Jeannot every year, and it usually works for them. So you can laugh at the asking price, but like Julian Brisebois,
don't hate the record or don't hate the history.
Brisebois has a way with these trades. And the craziest thing about this trade, despite the asking price, is apparently David Poile, who is retiring after this year and transitioning to Barry Trotz's former coach, now going to become a GM, wasn't willing to give Tanner Jeannot 6 years and around $2 million per, which is...
It seems like a very reasonable asking price.
I
don't know a lot about the players or like just NHL contracts compared to other sports, but like that seems like a pretty, especially if this guy's getting this type of return, that seems like a fairly decent asking price.
Yeah, I might have torches and pitchforks on my door, but like Tanner Jeannot is, I think, is close to like a young Milan Lucic as we've seen in a little while. Like if he can keep the scoring up, he had an uncharacteristically high scoring shooting percentage last year, but like he's big, he can score, he's a tough prick. Like this is the type of guy, it's surprising to see the amount of assets, but it's not surprising to see the team willing to give them up to get the player. So you can laugh at it all you want, people, but like
makes some sense in the long run.
Don't laugh if Tampa wins another cup.
I'll cry if that happens. Like
let me just say that. But this deal, undoubtedly a wild one. I feel like this kind of materialized kind of quickly, but we'll see how it pans out. I mean, Tampa's going to be a tough out for Toronto. It looks like in the first round this year for sure, even though they made their fair share of moves. Isaac Ratcliffe's, speaking of Nashville, they acquire him in this deal for future considerations for Philly. Then speaking of Toronto, they get Jake McCabe at half for retention, getting him down to $2 million for the next 2 years, and Sam Lafferty at 1.15 for the next 2 years, along with 2/5 in 2024 and 2025 from Chicago, in exchange of Joey Anderson and Pavel Gogolev, who are pretty much just throw-ins, and then a 2025 conditional first, which is top 10 protected, and a 2026 second from the Maple Leafs, rather. Good deal. They needed to respond. I mean, I think this is absolutely a response deal to Tampa. They get a really potential high impact, like playoff style forward. Toronto has really retooled their defense. We'll get to more so as we get along here, but honestly, a pretty solid trade for Toronto. Decent price, but nothing crazy. Like when you're a team like Toronto who can't get past the first round, 2025 and 2026,
you got to do something.
Picks should mean nothing.
Yep.
And I gotta applaud Kyle Dubas for this one. This is savvy business. Riley Stillman goes to the Buffalo Sabres for Josh Bloom. Josh Bloom, pretty good prospect playing in the Canadian League. Riley Stillman, kind of a meh defenseman, but it's just more depth for Buffalo. Kind of surprised they give up a prospects like Bloom, but whatever. They must really like Stillman. Jesse Puljujarvi goes to Carolina for Patrick Pustola. I like Patrick Pustola. He was a Bruins draft target for me in his draft year. Not a bad return. Get that contract fully off the books for Edmonton, which led to a future trade we'll get to in a second here for them. Henry Thrun's signing rights. He's a top pairing defenseman for Harvard right now. Wasn't going to sign with the Ducks. The Sharks gave up a 2024 third for him. Like that deal for him. And for the Sharks, I don't see why he wouldn't sign there. Probably a good opportunity right away to step into their top 6. So maybe he does so. No guarantee he signs there, but we'll see what happens. Marcus Johansson goes back to Minnesota after all these years for a 2024 third from Minnesota to the Capitals there. Eric Gustafsson and the Bruins first round pick from the Craig Smith trade goes to Toronto for Rasmus Sandin. Honestly can't believe Toronto gave up Sandin. He's a really good third pairing minute defenseman at $1.4 million. But I don't know, man. Apparently they really wanted that first round pick back and Sandin had to be given to do it. I like what Washington is doing. They're retooling on the fly. They get a good young defenseman back for Gustafsson in the first. I think with increased minutes, Rasmus Sandin can be a very formidable top 4 defenseman, but we'll see what happens as he's played mainly third pair minutes. And for Toronto, I mean, Eric Gustafsson has been surprisingly excellent for Washington this year at $800K in terms of a cap-strapped team. I love that for Toronto. Kyle Dubas has been killing it lately, and it's not a bad return. You get a first-round pick too. It's a good deal for both sides, but I think long-term, depending on what happens with the Bruins first, Sandin can really be a very impactful top 4 defenseman for the Capitals, but we'll see. If you thought they were done, you were wrong. The Leafs traded Pierre Engvall to the New York Islanders for a 2024 third. When I think of a good third line winger, I think of a guy like Pierre Engvall. Really good defensively, big, plays physical when he needs to. I like that deal for the Islanders. Then they traded for Luke Schenn as well, giving up a 2023 third. Guy just hits the fuck out of people all the time, leads the league in hits. Takes a lot of penalties though, so the Leafs will have to balance that. A former Leaf as well, so he reunites with them after all these years. Austin Rushoff to the Predators for future considerations. Not much there. Then we have one of the bigger ones, Matthias Ekholm at $250,000 retained for the next 4 years. 4% salary retention. Never seen anything like it.
It's weird.
But it must have just been very minuscule cap math there to get that done. He goes to Edmonton along with the 2024 sixth for Tyson Barrie. Must suck for Edmonton fans. He's a big fan of that top power play unit, best in the league with McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins. And then some. Tough price to give up, but Matthias Ekholm is a very solid, sturdy, stay-at-home defenseman with term. Got to give to get. Reed Schaefer, first-round pick at the Oilers from last year, also goes to Nashville in the deal. Very high-scoring left-wing prospect. And the 2023 first and the 2024 fourth. Pretty decent price to give up, but I like this trade a lot for Edmonton. They were in the mix for Chychrun too. They get Ekholm, a little older, but like the Chychrun price for a little while there was pretty over the top, so I don't mind them, going for this instead of having to deal with Bill Armstrong's stubborn ass in Arizona. Matthias Ekholm at 50% goes to the Minnesota Wild. He'll probably sit a long-term IR to the playoffs for Boston's 2023 fifth.
Gustav Nyquist, you mean?
What did I say?
You said Matthias Ekholm again.
Oh, Gustav Nyquist. Sorry.
You're good.
So hung up on the Ekholm trade, apparently. Gustav Nyquist goes at 50% retained to the Minnesota Wild. Like I said, they'll probably keep him on IR for a long-term IR and reactivate him in the playoffs. There were rumors of more strict long-term IR punishments this year. Maybe that affected the return here for Columbus, but for an injured player that they're probably not going to sign after this year when he expires, Can't really complain. Biggest trade of the deadline. Patrick Kane is finally a New York Ranger after all this time, making 2.625 on their cap, along with former Bruin Cooper Zek from the Blackhawks. Arizona gets Vili Sariarvi, Andy Walensky, a 2023 second, which upgrades to a 2024 first, which is top 10 protected, or a 2025 first if the Rangers make the Eastern Conference final, and a 2025 fourth. Arizona retains 50% of Kane's deal and gets a 2025 conditional third from the Rangers. I'm not going to fucking bother reading all of those conditions because it's a novel. If you want to figure it out, figure it out. I'm just not doing it. Don't care.
I'm just going to say, don't ever make fun of NBA trades again when it comes to trading like 2032 second round picks when the NHL is just throwing conditions around like it's going out of style.
Nothing will beat the pick in that Sean Monahan trade a few months back, though. That was the craziest one I've ever seen. I'm not going to bother reading this. Like, it's talking about cumulative points over regular seasons and picks upgrading. It's ridiculous.
Cap Friendly has me confused, though, on this. It says that because on this thing, it says they acquired Patrick Kane, but then it looks like the way it's set up, it made it looks like he flipped him. Like they got him from Chicago and then they flipped him to New York for more stuff. So
They did.
Oh, did they? Okay, I didn't know that. I thought it was just a 3-team deal.
Because it says Arizona acquires him, then you look over.
Yeah.
It's a weird little setup, but if you know,
I like how they explain everything out, but like that just confused me for a second. But that makes sense, and I didn't know that he actually was a member of the Coyotes for probably like 2 seconds, and then
Coyotes stockpiling them all. They had Pavel Datsuk's contract. They had Chris Pronger. They've had all these legends on dead money contracts.
Just throw your dead money at Arizona. They'll help you out.
They'd have an all-star team. It's unbelievable. There's a couple others I'm forgetting for some reason. This one was bizarre because Gavrikov to the Kings made sense. It really did. Korpisalo goes as well. Jonathan Quick goes to the Columbus Blue Jackets in this deal.
No sense.
He is rightfully pissed and blindsided for a team he brought 2 cups to at age 37 to just be dumped. He goes no salary retention to Columbus with a 2023 conditional first and a 2024 third. The condition of the first is if the Kings do not qualify for the playoffs this year, which kind of seems hard to believe, Columbus will instead receive 2023 and 2024 seconds. So not a bad trade-off, but I'm sure they would prefer the first in this unbelievable draft class and then rebuilding. Jonathan Quick has every fucking right to be pissed about this.
I can't say I blame him.
Like, all you do for this team and they just throw you to the side.
Kicking you to the curb.
And the crazy thing is, too, the Kings recently put Cal Peterson on waivers, who's a younger goalie who makes around the same amount of money. Why don't you just send him? He's in the minors. Why don't you just send him? Maybe I think it's Columbus wanting Quick as a trade asset because I think they're already trying to flip him in Vegas.
Oh, that makes more sense, yeah.
He's not going to play a game for the Blue Jackets. I'd be shocked if he plays a game for them. He's pissed. Anze Kopitar scored 4 goals for the second time in his career last night. And you could tell he's just like down in the dumps. He's like, we just traded one of my best friends. Like, what the fuck? Like, we're in a playoff position. We just traded the heart of our franchise.
Is he not their starting goalie? Why would you trade a goalie in the middle of I obviously haven't followed the Kings at all this season.
Jonathan Quick has fallen off over the past few years.
All right, that makes more sense then. But
it's like Phoenix, Copley, and him.
Okay.
They get a weird situation in net. We'll talk about their net situation in a second here with the new goalie they acquired. Besides Korpisalo, it's Korpisalo and Copley right now. That was bizarre. If Vegas can make the money work, it looks like he'll be a Vegas Golden Knight. That'd be funny if the Knights and the Kings play each other in the playoffs.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Jonathan Quick would go back to 2012, 2014 Jonathan Quick mode.
Could you imagine? He just stonewalls them all series. That'd be awesome.
He's pissed from all accounts, like very, very upset that they did him like this. So he might just rekindle that youth.
Just go scorched earth.
Absolutely obliterate them in net. Next up, we got Lars Eller, former Stanley Cup champion with the Capitals, going to the defending Stanley Cup champions at 31% retained. I can't remember a time I ever
Some
saw
weird
31%.
numbers. Yeah.
Weird number. He gets Washington a 2025 second. Lars Eller's okay, but like a second round pick for
Not
him
second round worthy. Yeah.
is really good for Washington. They're doing a fantastic job, like kind of half retooling on the fly because they don't have a very good prospect core. Outside of Hendrix Lapierre and Vinci Iorio and Connor McMichael, if you consider him, they don't have a lot of good prospects. So they're using this Bruins trade and some other trades on the fly here to retool things. They're doing a nice job. Colorado needs some center depth. They got a experienced playoff guy in Eller. I like the deal. This one is pretty bizarre as well. The Vancouver Canucks, who have no prayer of making the playoffs unless they go scorched earth, trade for a top 4 defenseman and a 4th round pick in 2023 for the Islanders pick that they got for Bo Horvat in the 1st round, which is conditional, not listed here for the conditions. I don't know if those have come out yet. Maybe not. Maybe they have. Not important. And a 2023 second from Vancouver. Don't know why they made this deal. I really don't. They're not going to sniff. Like, if they make the playoffs, they'll get swept. I don't understand this, but Hronek has some term after this year, so maybe
I was just gonna say building block type of guy, maybe.
rebounding.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe this is a guy they can, lock up long term in the end, but we shall see. Next up, we got Shane Gostisbehere going to the Carolina Hurricanes for 2026 third. Unbelievable steal for the Hurricanes. I'm glad they didn't get Chikrin, though. They were in the mix. But, like, if you're a team like the Hurricanes, who gives a fuck about a 2026 third round pick? Like, they pretty much just got Shane Gostisbehere for free.
Yep.
Even on a bad team, he's had a couple decent little seasons here in Arizona on a bad team. This is a nice deal for them. He's going to play third pairing, sheltered minutes. He's going to dominate on that third pairing. This is just a typical Carolina move.
The way you said that, I could just I don't know why I just pictured them getting on the phone, being like, "Hey, what do you fucking want? A 3rd round pick here? Fucking take it. We don't care." Just
that's probably what it was. Eric Tulsky is a mastermind behind the scenes for them there. I have to imagine he had some involvement in this deal. He's an analytics guru.
We'll just shuffle up a bunch of numbers. We pull out whatever the number is, 1 through how many rounds is the draft? 7.
Yeah.
So let's just say 1. Let's just say 1 through 7. We'll just put any number we pull out. 3. Okay, 3rd round pick. There you go. Trade done.
Yeah, pick it out of a hat.
Yeah.
Honestly, they don't care. They're trying to win, and this is a good
Makes
move
sense.
to help them do so. What is up next? Jacob
The one that
Chikrin.
makes no sense.
Jacob
There's some
Chikrin.
sense, but
We waited 18 months for this, which is hilarious. Jacob Chikrin is an Ottawa Senator after all this time. I'm not going to say nothing, but kind of for nothing. A 1st round pick is a lot, no doubt, but at the top 5 protected first, that's not going to matter. Ottawa's not going to be in the top 5 of the draft lottery. It becomes an unprotected first in 2024. If so, and then the 2024 second is if Ottawa makes the Eastern Conference final, they won't. It becomes a top 10 protected 2024 first. If it's top 10, it becomes a 2025 first because the NHL is stupid with these conditions.
loves their conditions.
This is why these trades take so long. I swear to God.
The NBA loves their
2026
second round picks, and the NHL loves
Exactly.
their conditions.
Exactly. The 2026 second rounds it out. For Arizona, after all this time, they do not get enough. They do not get prospects. They do not get any roster players. After all this waiting, all this bullshit. But the Ottawa Senators get a top 4 defenseman they desperately need. He can play left shot, right shot. He can play with Thomas Chabot. Him and Thomas Chabot would be a
That'd be a nice
ridiculously
pairing,
good
yeah.
pairing. This is a fantastic pickup for the Senators. This is the exact type of defenseman they needed. They were in a Mackenzie Weegar in the past. They were in a Matt Dumba. They were in a John Klingberg, who's the worst defenseman in the defenseman in his own zone, I should say, because he's a great offensive defenseman in the league. Just absolutely putrid. Doesn't play defense. Pretty much puts on a blindfold.
Should
Jacob
transition to a
Chikrin
forward at that point.
is absolutely not that player. He really should be a forward. Jacob Chikrin's fantastic. He's having a career year. Very good. Going to be even better on this team. I love this deal for Ottawa. 100%. This is a home run. I thought Detroit trading Hronek was maybe trying to, see them trying to make room for Chikrin and hop into the mix here with an extra first round pick. That doesn't happen. He goes to Ottawa.
Clearly, they didn't have to with the extra first round pick.
Yep.
Only takes one, and that's the big thing for me is I'm shocked at least one or two maybe not minor prospects, but maybe minor prospects when you're giving up 2 seconds in the first. But the fact that no player is going back to Arizona is kind of bonkers to me.
Yeah, they have I think they have 21 picks now in the first 3 rounds of the next 3 drafts. It's unbelievable. They're like the Oklahoma City Thunder of the NHL.
Just gonna say that, yeah.
Unbelievable. Eric Portillo, I wish I tweeted this out because I would have looked like a genius. My whole thing with Eric Portillo, he's an unsigned goalie at Michigan. Not having a great season, but it's a good, big goalie prospect, good size. Goes to LA. They don't really have any good goalie prospects. I wish I tweeted this out because this is my guy when the reports came out months ago that, Buffalo was going to trade the signing rights. He goes to LA. They get some reinforcements if he signs there in the goalie prospect core.
You can't just be happy predicting the Patrick Kane trade 5 months before it happened or whatever. You have to. All right, you greedy bastard.
My first thing was, I swear to God, when this came out, I was like, LA, they have no goalie prospects. This makes sense for them. Next up, we have Teddy Bluger going to the Vegas Golden Knights for Pilar de Liberator and a 2024 third. Bluger's having a tough season, but he's, if you can get him in the right situation, he's a good defensive fourth liner. Don't mind that deal for them. This one that came out during the show was weird. Vlad Nemesnikov at 50% retained by Tampa. Think about that with Tampa's cap situation. They're retaining salary.
That's wild.
For Mikey Asimon, who's a good player, he's an NHL guy until this year, jumps up onto the top line. He's having a good season in terms of analytics and all that. This is another one of those guys that Tampa will turn from nothing into something.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Cheap guy they get. Clearly, they wanted to move on from Nemestikov. I don't get this for San Jose, but whatever. This trade's just stupid for really just San Jose. But I just really can't believe this even happened. This just feels like one of those guys. Tampa Bay gets in the second or third round. He'll score a Game 6 overtime winner. And they'll look like geniuses for it. He's one of those guys, one of those Ross Colton, Nick Paul type of guys.
Something in the water in Tampa. Coleman.
Julien Brisebois is a mastermind when it comes to acquiring these guys. And most recently, we have Mikael Granlund, who has been pretty awful this year in terms of comparison to his 2021-22 season. It's been pretty fucking trash. In terms of the metrics, if you're a metrics guy.
Don't sugarcoat it.
He's got 36 points in 58 games this year, but he has really taken a step down from what I've seen versus his 64 points the year before. Pittsburgh, they're putting Brock McGinn on waivers. They're putting Mark Friedman on waivers. They're in the mix on Brock Besser. That doesn't happen. They're looking at JT Miller. After he just signed an 8-year, $8.5 million extension in the summer.
I was just going to ask you that. Didn't he just sign an extension?
Ron Hextall is a fucking idiot. I said this months ago. He's a former Flyers goaltender. I think he took that job somehow to sabotage the Pittsburgh Penguins as a rival.
Tin Cat or not?
This is further proof. This team, with their lack of young players and picks, does not need to give up a second-round pick for Mikael Granlund.
Okay.
I think it's a dumb trade. I think it's too much. I don't think this is the right type of move. I think this is a panic move because they found out in the end they couldn't get Brock Besser and they're still grinding away on JT Miller maybe. This is a dumb fucking trade. I would be massively confused if I was a Penguins fan, and I'm not even a Penguins fan, and I'm still massively confused. What a weird trade deadline this has been. And we're not even...
I was just saying, it hasn't even been the trade deadline yet, if you want to be technical about it.
This is just proof how stupid the NHL can be. It's unbelievable. I don't know.
Well, I told you
I'm
before
out
we
of
jumped
words.
on like this. I'm not gonna say the NHL is the worst trade deadline in sports because I think the NFL takes that no questions asked. But like to me, it felt like the NHL usually, and you said this that sometimes you have bigger moves get made, but most of the time it's a lot of minor stuff like that. That's been my big takeaway so far is how many big and like well known names have been moved. Obviously, I mean there was ones you could see coming, like you said. Obviously not part of this whole spiel, but like the Tarasenko move, you could have saw that coming. Chicken Renew was coming down the pipe for a while. And again, the return for that's just kind of an absolute joke with how much Arizona was asking for and what they didn't end up getting. The Kane one, again, as you predicted, months in advance, kind of could see that one coming. So I've kind of alluded to it a couple times here, like going into Friday, what exactly is left? Who do you think could potentially be on the move next if you had to pick like a couple of names or just one big name that you're thinking is going to get dealt at some point?
I mean, the big fish is JT Miller. If they can somehow get Pittsburgh to take on 8 more years or now 7 more years of him at 8.5.
Well, you said they're dumb, so
They seem to be in the mix for him. And it seemed on the Besser standpoint, they were in on him last night and that hit a snag. Like that was getting close. That hit a snag. One of Marcus Pedersen and or Pierre-Olivier Joseph and more were going to Vancouver. That hit a snag. Those are 2 guys I could see getting moved. Much more likely Besser because of the huge contract and huge commitment of JT Miller. Other than that, despite, like I said, potentially being the worst defenseman in his own zone in the league this year, outside of like shitty depth guys, John Klingberg, Dmitry Kulikov is a decent depth add. I really think it's like Besser, maybe Connor Garland if we're talking Vancouver too. I like it. There's so much going on in this deadline that it's like scrambling my brain.
mm-hmm.
And maybe John Klingberg gets dumped to a team stupid enough to pay for him. I'll be honest. I could see Ottawa making another move for John Klingberg.
Oh, Jesus, it's load up on defensemen.
They need help on the right side. They traded Nikita Zaitsev, as we talked about last week. They really just have Artem Zub and maybe Chikrin if he plays on his offside. Like I said, huge defensive liability. But if you're trying to score more goals and make a push for that wild card spot, get it for the right price. Maybe Ottawa doubles down, gets him, gets Matt Dumba maybe, if Minnesota's willing to dump him off in the middle of playoff run, but they're so cap crunched. I don't know.
You think
I
the
can see
Bruins?
Jordan Greenway,
Okay.
James Van Riemsdyk. Philly's trying to move him. Ivan Provorov, also in Philly, is in trade discussions. He's been for a little while now, but seems like smoke is starting to pick up on him. There's some guys out there. Colton Parayko maybe has 6 years left. Torrey Krug could be traded.
Okay.
Justin Folk. I think there's a chance one of those 3 guys in St. Louis gets traded. Seems more so like Parayko of the 3. Buyer beware. If you're buying Parayko, I think he could end up like a Tyler Myers type, big, powerful defenseman in his late 20s, early 30s, then hits that 30 to 34 to 37 range and he turns into a basket case.
Mm-hmm.
So buyer beware. Luckily, we don't have to worry about the Bruins doing that. He could be moved. A lot of the names are gone though. That's really how it is. I could say Max Domi as well. Max Domi, if they don't decide to hang on to him and lock him up, I could see a team looking for an additional scorer looking at Max Domi.
All right. Fair enough. My final question. Go ahead.
Outside chance the Bruins on Max
I was just going to ask. My final question for you then is, do the Bruins make another move? If they do, what's it going to be? Like, again, like you don't know about the status of Foligno. So like I said, while you were in taking your bathroom break, I would look for another cheap option just to get the depth. Maybe again, a veteran guy that isn't going to fill obviously the familiarity that Foligno has, like you said, with the locker room. Because again, if he's out for a while, that's going to be a huge gut punch just for what he's brought this season and the bounce back he's had. But if there's an obtainable veteran that has some experience to go get, I wouldn't hate Don Sweeney going out, maybe trading a middle of the round pick or a prospect that isn't going to crack the organization anytime soon. Is there a guy that's out there like that? I know you just said Domi's name, and anyone else kind of come to mind, at least for you? Or do you think that they're kind of good where they are right now?
I don't think Domi will come here, but I think there's a chance Chicago trades him in the right deal for the Bruins, there's pretty much 4 names I'm looking at left. It's Nick Bonino, it's Nick Bjugstad, it's Adam Ruzicka in Calgary if they fall out of the mix, or it's I'm forgetting the last name. What was the other name I was thinking of? I'll try and think of it. But those are a few names I think the Bruins could be in on. I think a guy they could move that I think Sneaky wants out in the right deal, if he can get a bigger opportunity to get more NHL playing time, is Jakub Lauko.
Okay.
I think they can move him. I kind of doubt it, but it's possible. If they can find a team for Mike Riley, that's possible, but I don't see it happening. I think a team looking for defense could see a guy like Zaboral kind of caught down in the
At a crossroad, yeah.
Look for a guy like Zaboral. I think that's possible. But in terms of most likely Bruins, I'm thinking a guy like Bonino or Bjugstad.
Okay.
I love Adam Ruzicka, though. He's 24, not necessarily a main fix in their lineup. He's big, can play the wing, can play center. I like Adam Ruzicka. He's been one of my guys from the start. Off the board option if the Flames continue to fall out of the picture here. I wonder if Adam Ruzicka can be had and, be a fixture in the bottom 6. Maybe between Lucic and Hathaway next year. That's my fever dream right now of signing Lucic next year and keeping Hathaway.
That'd be like an FU line.
Lucic, Ruzicka, Hathaway would be a bananas line, and you'd have that familiarity with Lucic and Ruzicka being current teammates on the Flames. So just something to think about. Garnet Hathaway, former Flame as well. So
okay.
Just throwing shit out there for fun. Damn it, I wish I could remember that 4th name. We'll see. There's a lot going on, man.
Still got plenty of time.
I didn't expect to have this much to talk about. This is, I feel like, been my first NHL ramble segment in quite a while. So it's good to get it off my chest because it's been brewing. So I appreciate the listeners bearing with me and you bearing with me here.
Yeah,
so
no problem. That's way more your expertise than mine. So I'll just sit back, kick my feet up, and kind of hear your thoughts on everything. For like I said, the players that I like, the 3 or 4 names on there that I recognize more so, like the Canes of the world and stuff like that.
Yeah, every time I go on these tangents with the trades or drafts or whatever free agency, I feel like the Charlie Kelly gif where he's like pointing at the
everything,
the board
and the math and everything,
the pins on it. That's what I feel like, but I hope it is coherent. If it's not, I apologize, but this is just how my brain works. So with NHL talk wrapped up after all of that and so much to catch up on, like I said, that I didn't expect there to be this much. I thought some of it would be saved for tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow being, Thursday for some people listening on the day of that aren't listening live. We'll see what happens. We'll catch up on it all next week. No work commitments to get in the way next week, thankfully. So we'll be able to catch up on it all, amongst other things in the world of sports. But next up, we have the Patriots.
And, there's a couple of Patriots things.
Couple Patriots notes here.
Yeah, some good, some, depending on how you look at the player, some good or bad, again, how you like them. But there's a Mac Jones report out there that I personally don't agree with. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but our good old reliable Dov Kleeman, who, again, you don't know if is a real person or not. I hope he's not a real person after a tweet like this, if I'm being honest, because I think it was either yesterday or today, this tweet's kind of caught fire a little bit. He said, report, Patriots coaches were instructed not to be hard on quarterback Mac Jones in an effort to protect him from being too critical of himself. There was an issue in 2021 with Jones struggling after getting yelled at, sources told at McKenna and Analysis. I'll defer to you because, like I said, I have some pretty strong thoughts on this, being the Mac Jones defender that I am. So people who have followed me and know my thoughts on Mac Jones probably know what's coming here. But I don't know. Do you have any big thoughts on this, on Mac Jones? Again, some people starting to call him soft and having some problems with this. Or do you believe it, rather, is what I should be asking you, I feel like.
I don't know, because, there's these reports, Mac ruffling feathers here and there, whatever, in the locker room, and then there's him going at Joe Judge or whatever. We see these clips on the sidelines. full transparency, I have no idea what to believe,
Okay, fair enough.
but I can kind of buy this a little bit.
All right, that's not
I'm
where
not-
I did not expect you to go there, but all right. I can see where you're coming from.
I'm not like fully sold on it, but like I can see them wanting to approach it this way from a standpoint, not because like he's soft,
Mhm.
but because like they want him to not have distractions in a season where he already has to adjust to a new offensive scheme.
Okay.
Like, do they want this to be more on his mind when he's having to deal with so much change as a young quarterback?
Okay.
There's
See that side of the
there's a
argument. It's
million
fair.
there's a million different ways you can look at this, I feel like, and obviously that's an exaggeration,
Mhm.
but it's weird. It's one of those debates where like if you're firmly one way, like end all be all on this debate,
Mhm.
I think you're kind of crazy.
I'm crazy then because I think this is complete bullshit. Like, I think it's a load of BS. I think if there was a problem in 2021, why didn't we hear
That's
about
the
it
weird
then?
part.
Yeah,
That
why
is
didn't
the
this
weird
come out
part.
then? If maybe it was a problem beforehand, maybe this is something that people knew about. Mac Jones coming out of college had this problem, but again, he played under Nick Saban, like very similar coaching styles to Bill Belichick. So if this was a problem leading up to the draft or just even before then, why didn't we hear anything about this? I feel like that's something that would have came up maybe in like his pre-draft scouting or his visit with the Patriots or whatever. Just like, hey, we're just going to throw this out there that Mac at times does have some problems with being too critical on himself. So you might have to watch out for that a little bit here. And then you mentioned it, you brought it up, the reports on rubbing people the wrong way in the facility. This is me just putting my tinfoil cap on here. I think there might be within the organization a little bit of a smear campaign starting against Mac Jones. You brought it up, the blow-ups on the sideline with Joe Judge. No problems last year with Mac Jones, who wasn't here last year. Joe Judge, Matt Patricia, those guys have been outed this past season as not being good at their jobs, and have taken a lot of heat recently.
It's got to be in part frustration.
Like, absolutely.
He goes from, say what you want about Josh McDaniels, but he has his shit together more on the offensive side.
Competent coach, I would say. Yeah.
Clowns do.
Mm-hmm.
This is fair to expect of him.
Yeah, I think this
having
is
some disagreements.
Absolutely. I think this is these two clowns and Patricia and Judge. And I mean, maybe this was more so on Patricia because there were reports that I think Denver was looking at him as a defensive coordinator option. So maybe Patricia, if this is him leaking this out to the media saying, well, I'm going to be on my way out here. So if I'm going to go down, dude. Mac's going to go down with me. Like, again, this is just me conspiracy thinking here, but like, I don't believe any of this. Cause again, like my biggest thing is that if this tweet came out and said like last year, there was an issue this previous year, but the fact that there was an issue in 2021 when, Mac could have arguably won offensive rookie of the year if it wasn't for Jamar Chase and nobody had a problem with how Mac Jones was playing. Then I would believe it more. But again, the fact that this was now 2 years removed, this comes out, I don't buy it. I think there's a little bit of some funkiness, some funniness going on within the organization. And again, like, my stance will change on Mac Jones if he comes out and struggles this year like he did last year. But again, I'm going to give Mac all the benefit of the doubt here until he gives me a reason not to. So this, I don't believe in the slightest. I think this is just, someone trying to throw shit at a wall and hope it sticks. And again, hopes it paints a bad picture of a quarterback that's already kind of under the microscope here going into his third year.
Yeah, like I said too, there's so many I feel like conflicting things we've seen over the past year.
Absolutely. Yep.
To I feel like have a firm take here.
Fair enough. Yep.
Quick hockey take. This would just be classic with our luck. Craig Morgan an hour ago saying the Coyotes is still working on securing a trade involving Nick Bukestad. So knowing our luck, the Bruins will trade like a fifth
That'll
round
drop
pick
at like 9:30,
2024 for him at like 9:45, 9:30 or something.
Yep.
So, but yeah, like it really is hard to get a read on the situation because one time we hear something negative, then we hear someone reinforcing it positively, then another way and another way.
McCourty's out on Good Morning Football, whatever it is, defending Mac till till the end of the world. So I'm glad you bring that point up because it's been a very tumultuous and strange offseason for the starting quarterback of the Patriots so far.
This is what I think it all comes down to. Like I included earlier, I think Mac Jones got to a point where he was frustrated with how things were being called on offense and how they're willing to drastically change things with unproven guys offensively on him in his second season after they spent a primo draft pick on him. That is entirely reasonable for him to get a little bit frustrated. If there's him rubbing people the wrong way, to me, unless there's something egregious he is doing or egregious things he is doing, I think that's more on his teammates. And I'm not saying his teammates are assholes. I'm saying it's just how
put yourself in the kid's shoes and
it's like a veteran versus a young player dichotomy. Veterans are going to react to things differently than younger players do.
Very true. Yep.
That is a thing in every single sport. It's a thing in normal workplaces. More experienced people see things differently than newcomers.
Yep. A great way to look at it.
If you are overinvested in this, I don't think you need to be.
Fair enough.
I'm not going to say anything mean to you.
No,
I don't think you need to be.
No, I know. I got you.
I just put it nicely.
Like I said,
anybody out there, because I imagine there are people, especially in Boston, they're overreacting to this and think,
well, that's
Mac Jones
I saw
is
this
crumbling this team.
This was starting to catch steam, and I'm like,
you know.
we're not doing this. Like this, we're looking way too into this. That again, and there's so many things. I mean, you argued the other side of it, which is good. We got a decent or a different take from both sides, but I mean, I think there's so many holes you could poke in this thing. Like it's just I don't know how. And again, like you said, we've heard so many different things, both on opposite ends of the spectrum. It's like it's tough to believe anything at this point, but good talking point nonetheless for some, haven't had a ton of Patriot stuff to talk about recently. The other stuff on some of their
something to monitor too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if more stuff like this starts to come out, then maybe you can start to read into a little more and dive in and be like, okay, well maybe there is something here. But again, as we've been in with a couple of things tonight, we're kind of in wait and see mode. Some of the other Patriot stuff too, some contract stuff. You added this. I did not see that Jonathan Jones and the Patriots want to bring him back, but haven't had serious talks yet. Did you have anything there to add on that or anything that you had seen otherwise?
Yeah, that's really all I've seen, but I'm in the camp where I want Jonathan Jones back on a 2-3 year deal.
Same.
I think at this point, early in his 30s, perfect bridge guy. Reconvene after that. See if you want to keep him even longer. He's a good mentor. He's been around. He can play different roles in the group of corners that you have. Has a little bit of versatility. I think he's the perfect type of guy, unless he's going to be making too much money and gets out of your price range and he cashes out somewhere else. I'm all about Jonathan Jones. Yeah,
I think I'm right there with you. I mean, are there better options maybe out there? Sure. But in a year where there's going to be a lot of questions going into next season, if you can bring him back for all the reasons you mentioned, he's a solid option that what you have in him. So it makes all the sense in the world to bring a guy like Jones back. And I'm glad the mentor thing too is a good point you bring up. Cause I mean, there's going to be young guys on this team moving forward. He's a guy that probably going to be looked up to. You mentioned too, you don't bring him back unless he's a guy that's out of your price range. One guy that could be that is wide receiver Jacoby Myers. There's been a lot of reports on him coming out recently. Boston Sports Gordo had a tweet saying, quote, Jacoby Myers could be in the range of 15 million to 20 million per year, according to Mike Reese. I saw this from PGS Nest. So again, take this with a grain of salt. Don't know how reliable that account is, but this person said, quote, contract extension negotiations between Patriots and homegrown wide receiver Jacoby Myers will begin this week during the draft combine, per Albert Breer and Phil Perry. And then I saw Phil Perry, he went on Boston Sports Tonight and said he believed that Myers would get close to market value, being $15 or $16 million a year. He cited Hunter Renfro's 2-year, $30 million extension with the Raiders last year, and Christian Kirk's 4-year, $72 million deal with Jacksonville as kind of the comparables to Jacoby Myers. But he said Kirk's deal is more so a stretch. But me personally, I mean, Myers is probably the best free agent wide receiver on the market this upcoming year. I don't think it'd be too crazy for a team that's desperate for wide receiver help to overpay for him. Maybe he does become the Christian Kirk of the offseason, where you sit there and you go, well, that's a wild deal for a receiver of his caliber. And then you saw Christian Kirk put on a pretty good season this year with Jacksonville. So your thoughts on Myers? Because, I mean, I know he's a guy you and I would probably love to have back, but if you're starting to get north of $16 million bringing him back, that might be a little too pricey for my wallet.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
I think the idea of I like Jacoby Myers. I do. 20 million is
That's
like
outrageous. Like,
elite receiver range.
absolutely. Yep.
If the Patriots bring Jacoby Myers back, I don't think he's in that 15 million range. I think you're
Mhm.
bringing him back at like 13 or 14.
Yeah, I was gonna say too after you finished that, like, this is a price range that I don't even think
I
fits the
wonder.
Patriots.
I wonder if this is agent speak
Probably.
trying to
Yep.
drum up the market. I really have a hard time seeing Jacoby Myers unless somebody, gives him a Christian Kirk type of deal,
Mhm.
giving him more than $16 million.
That would be
He's
insane
pretty
for a team to
good,
do that.
but he's not that good. But at the same time, he's arguably the best guy on the market. So that warrants maybe more money than he's necessarily worth.
Yeah, that's. I mean, there's
And
you got to.
this is the type of player in that
Yep.
scenario, the Patriots will not give him that.
No chance. I was gonna
They
say
won't.
he's the type of guy you got to worry about. I mean, we've talked. We'll get into it in a second with as you have the draft shakeup stuff, and then there's some reports obviously on the first round pick potentially being moved. But the Bears, they're desperate for a receiver. Like, I could very well see the Bears doing something dumb and saying like, we need a receiver back. Myers is the best option. We'll give him 17-18 million dollars and throw that money at him. Was your
No, I don't.
reaction to my comment, or did you
No,
have maybe a
no.
tweet that or a
No,
trade that
I
broke?
was looking to see if any trades broke. I saw that St. John's Prep hockey team beat
Made a trade?
Lexington
Oh.
11-0 and outshot them 63-6.
The
So
other team
that's
just
what
not even show
that's
up. Like, what
that's
happened
what I
there?
gawked at.
Wow,
Must have
That's
been
not
a 1-16 matchup.
that's
in
not a
Division
hockey
One.
score in the slightest.
St. John's Prep wins 63-6. They scored on all 63 shots.
Nice. Good for them. That's a historic game. But yeah, I mean, just the Meyer stuff, we're in agreement there, unless you had anything else to add.
No, yeah. What was this you were talking about trading the first round pick? Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, a little later on, I was going to say that the Bears are potentially looking to trade the first round pick, which should surprise
you
nobody.
Said first
Like,
round pick. I thought you meant the Patriots are looking to trade the pick. I was like, whoa,
no,
whoa.
I mean, they probably will. Don't get me wrong, but they'll do that draft night. They won't do it
No,
prior.
yeah. Like we can get into some recent NFL news before we get into the Jalen Carter stuff.
Mhm.
I feel like this makes more sense.
True. Yep.
The latest, we got Deron Payne. This is a franchise tag that makes sense. He's a pillar of their defense that is absolutely in progress. Very good defensive. Jeez, I keep hiccuping here. First player of the offseason to get the franchise tag from the Commanders. I think he's making around like $19 million this year now. And then the Commanders release Carson Wentz and Bobby McCain, saving them just a little bit under $31 million on the cap. Nice for the Commanders. Maybe they got big plans. Michael Brockers was the next to be released, saving the Lions $10 million. Bobby Wagner and the Rams decided to mutually agree to part ways. I'm going to say this again, like I did last year. I would love Bobby Wagner as a Patriot.
Yep, absolutely.
Certainly
that answers
take
my
that.
question I was going to ask you at the end of this. Like, what guy stands out to you as a Patriots fan the most? I think that's an obvious one for the both of us.
How could you not? I don't care how old he is. I love Bobby Wagner. I have for a very long time. Marcus Mariota, maybe a little bit surprising, but kind of not at the same time, released by the Falcons. It's Desmond Ritter's season that there for them. I think Logan Woodside is their backup. Maybe they draft a QB to compete with Ritter. I don't know, but we'll see what they do. Maybe Carson Wentz. Maybe that's a landing spot to.
I think I'd rather have Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, I don't know. That would just be classic, though. Kenny Golladay released by the Giants, or he will be on March 15th. That'll save them 6.7. He was a
No
bust
surprise there.
in every sense of the word for them. Did not work out. Very glad the Patriots didn't sign him. Absolutely wanted them to when he was a free agent. Glad they didn't.
Same. Yep.
Leonard Fournette will also be released on March 15th. After reportedly asking for a release. Maybe a guy that shares the backfield with Ramondre Stevenson.
I was going to say Patriots have kicked tires twice on him already and have lost out to the Bucs both times. So
anybody
he's
who
be available again
knows I like Lombardi Lenny. I got a Lombardi Lenny jersey back when he was on the Jaguars for Christmas one year. This is not new. I love him. I would really like him here on a 1 or 2 year deal.
Yep.
T. Higgins, the biggest name of the group here that we'll talk about, supposedly not on the market as you have noted here, but GM Duke Tobin of the Bengals says trading T. Higgins is not on my mind. If you want a receiver, go find your own. we'll see what happens.
Sounds like a
there.
little kid in that to me. Like, no, mine. This is mine. Go get like,
This is mine.
yeah, go away. But
This,
if they
like
can make it work,
it's like a kid that's got like a new toy at school.
yeah,
and he's like,
yeah.
He's like, oh, can I play with it? Like, no, it's mine.
No, mine.
It's my
Shoves the other
Power
kid down.
Rangers. Like,
Yeah.
fuck you, get out of here.
Yep.
Push a kid into the sandbox.
Yeah, that's the nice way of putting the. Yeah, that's what I kind of read it as that too. Like, if you want a receiver, go find your own. Like, go yourself,
like,
basically.
Or like Eric Cartman. No, you cannot play it. It's mine.
Mine. Yeah.
It's mine.
I mean, kudos to the Bengals. Like, that's going to be a tall task trying to keep him, Burrow, and Jamar Chase all under contract at the same time.
See,
but
the thing is, I think Joe Mixon, it looks like he might be.
him
casualty.
too. Yeah.
He might be the casualty. So I don't know. The thing would be really interesting is that they keep T. Higgins, of course, extend Chase and Burrow eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and then draft like Bijan Robinson in the first round this year, that stud running back.
You're same spot you're in, that like that's just as good. Like I've said, if you've as long as you know me, like I think I've preached this, that like you can find running backs anywhere. So I mean, I know Joe Mixon's a great running back. It would be a tough loss, but like the Bengals have plenty of options on offense. That would not be the worst. And you bring back P. Ryan if he's under contract, or if not, I mean, he's a viable option.
If you're the Bengals, you got to probably be looking at another lineman or Bijan Robinson. Like drafting running
what
backs
else do you
in the
really
first
need?
round
Like,
is a friggin' crapshoot. Maybe I'd say they could use another good linebacker personally, but it depends on who's on the board there. Who they feel comfortable with. Maybe Drew Sanders, maybe Trenton Simpson. Bijan Robinson, if he's available, might be too hard to pass up, because that dude is a fucking moose. He is a full-blown moose. And like I said, drafting running backs in the first round is something you have to miss, it's a buyer beware thing. But Bijan Robinson is a guy that, dating back to even last year, is the real deal. A guy that could be a top 5, top 8 running back in the league in 2 years' time. Like, he's that good. So if you're looking to round out that core of the future and you can get all those guys locked up, plus Bijan on a rookie deal for 4 years,
you'd be in great shape.
I'm throwing it out there. That's
your next
prediction.
That's
my bold prediction.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to say that's my next bold prediction, but maybe it will be once they it won't be so bold at that point if they release Mixon. But I mean, at this point, like, you can live with releasing Joe Mixon if you need to create cap space,
save some cap. Yeah, I mean,
you
that's
get
what
a
I mean.
cheaper
You can
guy,
find running
or you
backs.
can get Bijan, or you can get a guy in the second or third round that could be fine, or you sign a friggin' veteran free agent. But the Bengals, man, they're an interesting team to watch this offseason, because this is a team that's not only already good, but a team that needs to nail this and get over the hump so they can beat teams like the Chiefs and the Browns, maybe the Browns, the Bills, or the Chargers, maybe the Raiders if they get Aaron Rodgers. But speaking of teams that start with B, the Chicago Bears are leaning towards moving the number 1 overall pick, as a lot of us probably expected.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's obviously going to be a big story when the number 1 pick in any draft is getting traded, but like, this makes so much sense. Like, it'd be stupid for the Bears to take. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the defensive player that is one of the guys. Yeah. Oh, it was until.
Anderson,
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Jalen Carter, but maybe that influences them. Like, this legal situation with Jalen Carter, maybe they're like, okay, we're a little more nervous about him. Maybe this makes us more willing to trade the first overall pick, because maybe he was their main target. And they don't need a quarterback necessarily.
Well, that was going to be my point too, is like 2 of the top 3 picks I feel like are supposed to be quarterbacks, or maybe 2 of the top 4. They're going to stick with Fields. I think that's the right play, at least for now. Again, you got to see what you have in this kid, get some stuff around him. So keeping 1, maybe drafting a quarterback, or not drafting a quarterback, but like, that would have been a dumb play. But yeah, to me, the whole story of, now they're just leaning towards, it's not a huge surprise to me, because I feel like they should have been probably leaning towards a trade it, get as much draft capital or help as you can to try to fill that team around Fields.
Yeah, and especially with the report a couple of weeks ago of Indy finally kind of looking towards the future, it seems they're going to do at the quarterback position.
That's smart.
The popular trade partner for the Bears has been Indy moving up from 4 to 1 and getting Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, if they want to really go off the board, if he crushes it at the combine, I think we'll see Anthony Richardson in the top 5 conversation.
That would be the Colts move. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, like,
that quarterback's good. Don't get me wrong, but like the top
he's-
consensus guys are, I feel like Stroud and
Yeah.
yeah.
See, the thing is, Bryce Young is being a little discounted because of his height. So
True.
we'll see
That's
what
true.
happens
Yeah,
with
that's
his
starting to
measurables this week at the combine in Indy.
that's starting to catch fire. Yep, right.
Look, if I'm I'll just say this: if I'm a team like Carolina, where they're at, and Anthony Richardson is the board, I'm taking him.
Absolutely. Yep.
There's too much with the raw tools, the size, the mobility, the arm strength. That's a guy like, I don't know if this is a good comparison, but he's kind of like a Trey Lance on steroids to me.
Okay.
So I think any team that takes, even the Falcons, if they take a gamble on Anthony Richardson, and it ends up he's the better guy than Desmond Ridder. I don't know.
I wonder
man.
if that's why
Anthony Richardson might cause some ripples in the draft boards of teams this year. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm not the first one to say this, but like,
That's not a bold
I don't
prediction
know
either.
if he crushes it at the combine this week, that size, the power, the running ability, he could be an absolute horse, like a new age Cam Newton.
All right, fair enough.
I don't know.
I like where your head's at.
He's also happens to be a Florida QB like Cam Newton was. So there's that. Speaking of the top of the draft, and the Bears, most specifically, who might have targeted Jalen Carter, maybe not anymore.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
He denies the allegations, and I'm sure more legal proceedings will follow. We got a potential huge shakeup at the top of the draft. Jalen Carter, stud defensive lineman from the national champion Georgia Bulldogs, an absolute menace in the interior defensive line, has a warrant out for his arrest, accusing him of reckless driving and racing in a crash that took place on January 15th around 2:30 a.m. That killed teammate Devin Willock and recruiting analyst at Georgia Chandler LaCroix just hours after the national championship. It was reported that LaCroix's vehicle was going 104 miles an hour at the time of the crash. Carter allegedly made misleading statements about where he was at the time of the crash and said he was over a mile away from where it took place when it happened. And to add fuel to the fire, he was supposed to show up to the media and talk to them at the combine today at 10:30 in the morning. Did not show
and
up.
Ditched. Not a great look. Not in the slightest.
Yeah, it's bad, and it just of course makes you think of the victims who died in the crash as well.
Mm-hmm.
A really unfortunate situation that will be further investigated here. What a crap situation. Like, I don't know what else to say, and it's gonna cause quite the shakeup.
Yeah, I was gonna say it definitely from not to focus too much on the legal stuff, obviously, because you don't know all the facts or whatever. So I'm not gonna go into it too much, but like it definitely muddies the waters from the sports standpoint, the draft coverage and stuff like that. Like you said, a guy that maybe was looked at as the number 1 pick. Can't imagine he's being looked at as a number 1 pick. I don't know how many teams just in the first round in general are gonna even consider this guy. Yeah.
I mean, I think first round teams will consider him at this rate unless things drastically change.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I can't imagine he's in the mix of the first round pick at all anymore.
No chance.
I don't know how you can take that risk at the first pick.
Nope. So
no chance. But it's really a shame. It's just one of those things where, we don't want to speculate on it too much at the same time, though, because there's a lot that's still up in the air. But definitely something to monitor at the top of the draft, and for the the sanity of the victims' families and friends, that things can be resolved, and whatever happens to this. The legal proceedings take their course. So
the only other thing I was going to say about this too, really quick, just reading the notes you have in here again, like the allegedly misleading statement stuff too, is just not going to help help things because now it's like, okay, now you're a liar and you're going against what everybody else says to be on top of what you've allegedly already done. So that's just not going to help what's already a bad situation look any better, if it even can.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rough. I I hate seeing shit like this. Like,
Yeah, it absolutely it ruins what should be like a great week leading up to, obviously the combine and everything, and then obviously a great thing in the draft. And now it just kind of, like, again, I keep saying, like, it puts a damper on things in the worst way possible.
yeah. Like I said, we don't want to speculate too much. We'll see what
Obviously,
happens. And then that's gonna wrap it up for episode 132 here tonight. Another Wednesday night for you here.
No final hockey trades before you sign off. Just waiting for
That's
like 9:29 to hit, and then the Bruins will make another move, or someone else will get traded, and shit will continue to hit the fan.
I don't know. Okay, well, speaking of hockey news, shout out to my high school, Hanover High School, winning their first round matchup 6-0. It doesn't look like we have any trades though.
Right.
The
So we're safe
Avalanche
for now.
plays Cale Makar on injured reserve though. So
That's not
something.
good.
He's dealing with some concussion stuff, so something to monitor for the Avs. They can't stay healthy. Nichushkin, Landeskog have played all year. Tough year for the Avalanche. That's gonna wrap it up though. Thank you so much for listening. Like we say every week, we're so lucky to have so many listeners and so many good numbers on the show. So much appreciated. You can find us wherever you find your podcast. You can find us on Twitter. You can follow me at Mike_Cratty. You can follow Ryan at Ryan_Salvaggio. And you can follow the show at Salvaggio and Cratty Pod. Follow us on TikTok. I've been posting again. I'm sure we'll pick things up as things go along in the coming weeks here as we get closer to baseball season and stuff like that as well. And draft coverage, all that stuff. I'm sure things will pick up there. Yeah, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitch at the on the Folk Press coverage pages. If you want to watch live as well, you can do that. And until next time, we'll have the trade deadline and other stuff to talk about next week with all the dust settling. Maybe the Bruins just continuing this win streak. Maybe some Celtics. We'll see what happens. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, be nice to people, all of that good stuff. And we will talk to you next week.